My name is Yihong. I'm 16 years old and, honestly, the worst student in my class at Jitsai High School. I didn't get into the good public school, so my parents had to pay extra to send me to this private one. It was just another boring English class. The teacher was droning on, and I fell asleep at my desk, like I usually do. I had this nice dream where I'd gotten into the best school in the county and my parents were proud of me. Then a strange, cold, robotic voice echoed in my head, saying something about a God-level enhancement system binding to me. Before I could figure out what that meant, a piece of chalk hit me right on the head and woke me up. The whole class laughed at me. Even my desk mate, Zhang Xuewei, the prettiest girl in class, looked at me with disgust. Her mom is actually our English teacher, Miss Zhang, and she clearly hates that I sit next to her daughter. Miss Zhang pointed at a translation problem on the board and told me to solve it or copy it 100 times as punishment. The thing is, that problem was from a future chapter, way too hard for any of us. She was setting me up to fail. I walked up to the board, ready to admit I couldn't do it. But then that robotic voice came back. English Ability 1. Every time I looked at a word, I suddenly understood its meaning, like someone had installed a dictionary in my brain. The voice kept going, 1, 1, 1, until my English level jumped to proficient. Everything clicked. I picked up the chalk and wrote out the full translation in less than 10 seconds. I even pointed out a grammar mistake in the textbook itself. Interesting should have been interested in that sentence. Miss Zhang checked the answer key and realized I was right. She turned red and quietly told me to sit back down. The whole class was stunned. I used to be the kid everyone looked down on. Now, walking back to my seat, I felt like they were the ones beneath me. When I sat down, Zhang Xuewei secretly passed me a note. How did you do that? I noticed she had moved a little closer to me, her face slightly flushed. All the guys around us were burning with jealousy. I just smiled to myself. Yesterday, you couldn't be bothered to talk to me. Today, things are very different. After that whole scene in class, I ignored Zhang Xuewei's note and tried talking to the system in my head. Nothing. It wouldn't respond at all, like a silent, antisocial machine. So I decided to test it myself. Right there during English class, I pulled out my math textbook. Everyone around me was shocked. The genius was now reading math in English class. But the moment I opened the book, the system chimed in. Math Ability 1. I went through all my other textbooks one by one, and the same thing happened for every subject. By the end, I had reached proficient level in everything. I figured that with just one evening at home, I could master the entire first-year curriculum. When school ended, I packed all my textbooks into my bag. That's when Zhang Xuewei stood up nervously and asked if we could walk home together since we live in the same direction. Funny, I'd asked her the exact same thing a few days ago, and she'd just rolled her eyes at me. Now she was the one asking. How things change. I said yes. At the school gate, her mom, Miss Zhang, was waiting like usual. She looked annoyed when she saw a boy next to her daughter, but when she realized it was me, her expression turned awkward. She clearly hadn't gotten over what happened in class. Xuewei told her mom she wanted to walk with me to ask some study questions, and Miss Zhang let us go. I could tell she was confused by her daughter's sudden change of heart. Along the way, Xuewei kept asking how I'd gotten so good at studying so suddenly. I dodged every question, which only made her more curious. Then she asked if she could call me Ahong instead of classmate Yi, and I told her she could. I said her name, Xuewei, meant rose in the snow, and that it matched her perfectly. Her face turned bright red. Then the system chimed again. Flirting skill 1. I couldn't believe it. Even that could be leveled up? This system is insane. We reached her house and said goodbye. She looked a little sad, but then smiled when she remembered we'd see each other the next day. I headed to my family's small restaurant, Ye's snack shop, on a food street in the east side of town. The place wasn't much to look at. Old decorations, barely any customers. It's been in my family since my grandpa's time, and now my parents run it. They spent most of their life savings just to get me into Jitsai High School. I silently promised myself, now that I have this system, I'm going to change things for my family. My mom and Xiaoying started bossing me around the second I walked in. She and my dad, Yi Xiao, the neighbors call him Midnight Snack Brother, bicker constantly. It's their thing. Dad tossed me a piece of raw beef and told me to practice my knife skills. They've been training me to take over the shop since they figured I wasn't cut out for studying. The moment I started cutting the beef, the system kicked in again. Cooking ability 1. I kept going, and the experience points kept stacking up until I hit proficient level. Suddenly, my head was full of cooking knowledge I'd never learned before. I figured out the system's ranking. 1 to 10 points is beginner, 11 to 100 is proficient. I still didn't know what comes after 100. My cutting speed shot up dramatically. The rapid-fire thok of the knife made my dad stop what he was doing and turn around. His jaw dropped. He had no idea when I'd gotten this good. After I finished cutting the beef, my dad rushed over to the cutting board and couldn't believe his eyes. Every slice was perfectly even. He admitted he couldn't do it that well himself. He slapped my shoulder hard and laughed, saying the family restaurant finally had a worthy successor. Then the system chimed. Anti-hit ability 1. Even getting smacked counted? I actually asked my dad to hit me again, but he just told me to stop messing around and cook the beef. Here's where things got interesting. While I was making the beef noodles using our family's old recipe, passed down from my grandpa, something felt off. My brain kept telling me the traditional steps were wrong, and that there were better ways to make the dish taste amazing. I realized my proficient level cooking ability was kicking in. So I started changing things up, swapping ingredients, rearranging the order of steps. The whole process looked completely different from our usual recipe. My mom walked in and caught me in the act. She freaked out, yelling that I was doing everything wrong and threatening to spank me if the customer complained. I told her to relax. The customer would love it. The customer was a tough-looking bald guy with a gold chain. When he took his first bite, he froze. My mom panicked and rushed over to apologize, offering to make a new bowl. But the guy wasn't upset at all. He started devouring the noodles like crazy, slurped down every drop of soup, then slammed the bowl down and shouted, "One more bowl, and pack 6 more to go. I need my buddies to try this." He couldn't believe noodles this good existed and wondered how he'd never noticed our shop before. My mom came back to the kitchen in a daze. She and my dad just stared at me. I shrugged and said I told them so. They watched me make 7 more bowls. I didn't change any ingredients. I just rearranged the order of the seasonings and cooking steps. That alone transformed an ordinary bowl of noodles into something incredible. The system kept going, in the background the whole time. My parents got excited and suggested I skip college and go to cooking school instead. I rolled my eyes. Your son is meant for bigger things. That night, my parents stayed up trying to copy my method, but they couldn't get it right. They used up almost all our soy sauce in the process, then sent me out to buy more. There's a shortcut to the nearest store, a dark alley where troublemakers usually hang out. I'd normally avoid it, but with my system, I felt a lot braver. I decided to take the shortcut. I was halfway through the dark alley when I heard a girl's panicked voice up ahead. Help! Was this really happening? A damsel in distress situation, right in front of me? My blood started pumping, and I jogged deeper into the alley. I saw 3 punks with dyed hair and black tank tops cornering a girl against a wall. She looked about my age, pretty, fair-skinned, wearing a white school uniform. Her name, I'd later learn, was Lee Muya. She was terrified, her voice going hoarse from screaming for help. She'd been working late at a clothing store for triple pay during a big sale, and now she was trapped. The 3 guys were grinning like wolves, pretending they just wanted to have a drink with her. She wasn't buying it. I cleared my throat loudly. All 3 spun around, startled, but when they saw I was just a skinny student, they burst out laughing. "Go home and do your homework, kid," they mocked. Lee Muya's brief flicker of hope died instantly. She figured she was done for. But I had my system. I stood my ground and told them to get lost. That wiped the smiles off their faces. They reached behind their backs and pulled out 3 fruit knives, blades glinting in the dim light. Oh crap. I'd been planning to stall and maybe unlock some new abilities through the system. I didn't expect them to have weapons. I talked too big. I backed up fast. They charged at me, knives flashing. I looked around desperately for something to defend myself with, but all I could find were some scattered pebbles and litter on the ground. Whatever. I grabbed a stone and hurled it at them with everything I had. Ding. Throwing ability 1. Current level. Beginner. The stone sailed right through the gap between them without hitting anyone. Their charge didn't slow down at all. But instead of panicking, I actually started to relax. A sly grin crept across my face. This could work. Eat another stone, I yelled, dodging around the alley while chucking pebbles at the 3 knife-wielding punks. At first, my throws were all over the place. The few stones that actually hit them barely stung. It just made them angrier. But I kept throwing, and the system kept counting. 1, 1, 1. Everything changed on the 11th stone. Ding. Throwing ability. Proficient level. That familiar rush of knowledge flooded my brain. I suddenly knew my next throw would hit exactly where I wanted. I flicked my wrist like I was launching a dart. The stone shot out twice as fast as before, whistling through the air, and smashed right into one punk's eye. He screamed and collapsed, blood seeping through his fingers as he clutched his face. One down. The other two were furious. 3 against 1, and they'd already lost a guy to some kid with pebbles. They charged at me with everything they had. But I wasn't the same person I'd been 2 minutes ago. No need to run anymore. I smiled, and 2 stones flew from my hands like lightning. 2 more screams echoed through the alley. Both guys crumpled to the ground, hands clutching between their legs, faces twisted in agony. I'd aimed for the most painful spot a man can be hit. Ding. Critical hit on a vital area. Throwing ability 5. In less than 2 minutes, all 3 were rolling on the ground, completely finished. Over in the corner, the girl was frozen, her mouth hanging open in a cute little O shape. She'd forgotten to run. She just stared at me like I was glowing or something. As for me, I was riding a wave of excitement. I'd always been the timid kid, the type who swallowed his feelings when someone bullied him. This was the first time in my life I'd ever fought back and won. It felt amazing. Then the system chimed again. Ding. Rescued a girl. Her affection toward you has increased. Flirting skill 5. That snapped me out of my victory high. I walked over to the girl and got my first real look at her up close. She was stunning. Up close, this girl was even prettier than I'd thought. Fair skin, delicate features, and a pure, girl next door kind of vibe. It made me angry that those 3 creeps had almost hurt her. She was studying me too. I reached out my hand to help her up from the ground. Are you okay? I'm fine. Thank you so much, she said softly, taking my hand. Her name was Lee Muya, though I didn't know that yet. She told me she came from a poor family and worked part-time at a clothing store after school. Tonight the store had a big sale, so she'd stayed late. She took this alley as a shortcut to get home faster. Bad luck led her straight to those 3 punks. If I hadn't shown up, she didn't want to think about what would have happened. When our hands touched, we both kind of froze. Her hand was incredibly soft. She blushed and pulled away after standing up, and I felt a small pang of disappointment. She looked at the 3 guys still groaning on the ground and asked what we should do with them. I grinned and told her to leave it to me. I grabbed a handful of pebbles and walked toward them. The second they saw the stones in my hand, they panicked. Don't come closer. We'll call the police. Seriously? They were going to call the police on me. I crouched down in front of them, cold-faced, and told them that if I ever caught them hanging around this alley again, they'd regret it. Then I flung the pebbles at the wall behind them. Every single stone embedded itself in the concrete, spelling out the Chinese character for death. They nearly lost it. All 3 started crying and begging, swearing they'd never come back. I added one more condition: leave this girl alone. They agreed instantly, then scrambled to their feet and limped out of the alley as fast as they could. Then I glanced at my watch and panicked. The store was about to close, and I still needed to buy soy sauce. Gotta go. See you around, I called out, already jogging away. Behind me, I heard her shout. Hey, you didn't tell me your name, but I was already gone. What I didn't know was that she'd noticed my school uniform. She recognized it as Jitsai High School's, the same school she attended. I'll find him, she told herself, smiling like a flower blooming in the night. I barely made it to the store before it closed at 11. Standing outside in the cold wind with a bottle of soy sauce, I suddenly smacked my forehead. I'd forgotten to ask that girl for her name or contact info. What an idiot. I really hoped I'd get another chance to see her. Back at home, we live on the 2nd floor above our restaurant. I couldn't sleep. I was way too excited. My room is tiny, less than 10 square meters. I used to share it with my younger sister on bunk beds, but she's at a boarding school now, so I have it to myself. I kept flipping between the top bunk and bottom bunk, grinning like a fool one moment, then grabbing textbooks the next to keep farming experience points. The system chimed, 1, over and over. But mixed in with the excitement, I started thinking seriously. Why did the system choose someone as ordinary as me? I decided not to overthink it. A gift is a gift. What I needed to focus on was using the system to improve life for me and my family. And for that, I needed money. A lot of it. One upgraded bowl of beef noodles wasn't going to cut it. I needed to unlock more abilities and get stronger. I calmed down and tried asking, "System, do you have a status screen?" For once, it actually responded. A stats panel appeared in my mind. All 9 major high school subjects: Chinese, math, English, politics, history, geography, physics, chemistry, biology, were at proficient level, with experience somewhere between 18 and 23 out of 100. I noticed that once you hit proficient, leveling up gets much slower. Just flipping through first-year textbooks wasn't very efficient anymore. I need to get my hands on second and third-year books for more experience. Beyond academics, I also had proficient-level cooking and throwing abilities, plus beginner-level anti-hit resistance and flirting skill. I sat on my bed, quietly planning how to level everything up. Then, from my parents' room next door, I heard their bed creaking in a very adult way. Annoying as always. I grabbed some paper, rolled it into balls, and stuffed them in my ears. Ding. Ear perception trained. Hearing 1. Level, beginner. Great. Now I could hear them even more clearly. I need to move out. The next morning, I showed up to class with dark circles under my eyes. Thanks to my parents' nighttime activities, I'd barely slept. When I dragged myself through the back door of the classroom, I noticed something unusual. Zhang Xuewei, who was normally cold and distant, was sitting at her desk eagerly watching the door, holding something in her hands. The whole class was buzzing with gossip, wondering who she was waiting for. Turns out, she was waiting for me. The second she saw me, her eyes lit up and she jumped out of her seat so fast she almost tripped. "Ehong, I brought you an apple. They say eating one a day is good for your health." She held it out to me with both hands like she was presenting a treasure. "Oh, thanks." I mumbled, took the apple, dropped my bag on the desk, and face-planted straight down. I was too exhausted to talk. Funny thing, I couldn't sleep at all at home, but the moment I hit that school desk, I was out cold. School really is the best place for napping. Xuewei wasn't even mad. She sat beside me quietly, careful not to make noise. She probably thought I'd been up all night studying. If only she knew the real reason. Meanwhile, the class gossip machine went into overdrive. Everyone figured out that the person Xuewei had been waiting for was me, the former class loser. People were outraged. "A flower stuck in cow dung," someone muttered. Others complained that all I could do was show off some English skills. There was one person more furious than the rest. Qin Long, the so-called class hunk. He sat by the window, dyed blonde hair, ear studs, tall, and strong build with that bad boy look girls go crazy for. He'd had his eye on Xuewei, and seeing her fawn over me made his face twist with rage. In his mind, losing to someone impressive would have been bearable. But losing to me, average looks, ordinary family, no reputation except one flashy English answer, was unacceptable. He quietly swore he'd steal Xuewei away and make me pay. I had no idea any of this was happening. I was fast asleep, completely unaware that Xuewei's attention had just made me an enemy. I didn't even hear the bell ring for first period, which happened to be taught by our homeroom teacher. Our homeroom teacher, Mr. Yang Daoshen, is a 50-something math teacher who's basically counting down the days to retirement. He's mostly bald, covered in wrinkles, and teaches in such a boring, old-fashioned way that even the best students struggle to stay awake. He usually ignores small stuff. Qinlong's dyed hair, the chubby kids' comic books, and yes, me sleeping in class. So when he started his lesson on functions, I was already out cold. I would have slept through the whole thing peacefully if it weren't for Qinlong. Right in the middle of class, Qinlong stood up and raised his hand. "Mr. Yang, I'd like to report that Yihong sleeps every day and it's affecting my studies." Everyone nearly laughed. Qinlong, the guy who never studies and only chases girls, claiming someone else was hurting his grades? But nobody stopped him because they could all smell what this was really about. He was jealous. Then he showed his true colors. "I suggest you move Xuewei away from Yihong's desk." That set off whistles and teasing across the room. Some kids had already been calling Qinlong and Xuewei the golden couple of our class. People started saying they were a better match, that Qinlong was way more handsome than me. Mr. Yang walked over and banged on my desk to wake me up. I opened my eyes groggily and mumbled, "What's up, teacher? Want me to solve a problem?" The class went quiet. They remembered what happened yesterday in English class. But they told themselves there was no way I could be good at math, too. Mr. Yang looked disappointed. He'd heard about my English performance and thought I was turning things around. Seeing me asleep again, he said coldly, "Pay attention. Don't let me catch you sleeping again, okay?" I said, not really meaning it. I'd already mastered the entire semester's material. Why would I need his lecture? The second he turned around, I put my head back down and fell asleep. My snoring even had a nice rhythm to it. Shuawei couldn't help but laugh. She'd never seen anyone disrespect a teacher so casually. Her smile was beautiful. Several guys nearby practically drooled. And that made Qin Long even more furious. He snapped. He stormed over to my seat, grabbed me by the collar, and lifted me right off my chair. The guy is over 180 centimeters tall and strong. He held me up like I was a chicken. "Get away from this seat, you loser," he shouted. A bunch of guys cheered him on. "Nice one. We support you, class hunk." Shuawei yelled at him to stop, but her obvious concern for me only made Qin Long grip harder. I was seriously annoyed. All I wanted was some sleep, and I kept getting woken up. I have terrible morning temper. I opened my eyes and stared at him coldly. He sneered in my face. "Know your place, Yihong. A toad like you doesn't get to eat swan meat. Let go," I said quietly. "Like hell I will." I didn't say another word. I just stared straight into his eyes. Ding. Intimidation, Aura 1. Level, Beginner, Aura. It's that commanding pressure powerful people give off without saying a word. And right then, something shifted. Qin Long suddenly felt like I'd become towering and terrifying, like my eyes held an endless storm. He told me later it was the same feeling he only ever got from his own father. His hands went weak. He let go of me involuntarily, and before he could stop himself, the words slipped out of his mouth. "Dad." The entire class went dead silent. The whole classroom went dead silent after Qin Long accidentally called me Dad. Nobody could believe it. After a few frozen seconds, people started whispering, "Did Qin Long just call Yihong Dad?" His face turned bright red. He was so humiliated that he raised his fist to punch me. But before he could, Mr. Yang exploded from the front of the room. Enough! Turns out, our sleepy old homeroom teacher had a fierce side after all. Decades of experience as a teacher meant he knew exactly how to handle troublemakers. When he got serious, even Qin Long had to back down. He ordered us both to sit down, then smiled in a way that made me nervous. He pulled out 2 sheets of paper covered in tiny writing, a qualifying problem for the county high school math competition. He said if either of us could solve it, we'd represent the school at the competition and he'd forgive today's mess. But if we couldn't solve it by tomorrow's math class, he'd put a disciplinary mark on our permanent student records. That scared both of us. In our country, your student record follows you for life. A black mark on it could ruin your future. Mr. Yang, his name literally means deep in wisdom, really lived up to it. Crafty old man. I looked at the problem. It was a massive trigonometric function question, nearly 10 lines long. My head spun just reading it. I asked the system how much experience I'd need to solve it. For once, it actually answered. At least 11 more experience points required. 11 points. Not impossible. I immediately started flipping through my math textbook to farm experience, but I'd already read through it completely. Repeated reading didn't give any more points. I was stuck. I glanced over at Qin Long. Strangely, he looked totally relaxed, even though his test scores were barely better than mine. Something was off. Shuawei noticed I was worried and tried to cheer me up. That gave me an idea. "Shuawei, could you help me borrow some second and third year math textbooks?" She thought about it and said she could try. Her mom had a colleague whose son, a second-year student named Bball, might lend his books. I was thrilled. She asked why I needed them and whether I could really learn that much in one day with no teacher. I just smiled mysteriously. Trust me, I have my ways. What I didn't know was that after school, Qin Long went straight to that same Bball's classroom. He grabbed the scrawny bookworm by the collar and shoved the competition problem into his hands. "Solve this by tomorrow," he growled, "or I'll break your legs." So that was Qin Long's secret. He wasn't planning to solve the problem himself at all. He was going to bully a smart kid into doing it for him. What I didn't know was that Qin Long had his own plan. He'd gone to bully Bball, a well-known math whiz in the second year, into solving the competition problem for him. Bball was too scared to refuse. But then Qin Long spotted Shuawei heading toward Bball's classroom too. He panicked, thinking she was also coming to get Bball's help for me. He hid in the shadows and told Xiao Bo to keep quiet about his visit. Turns out, Shuawei was only there to borrow Xiao Bo's math textbook. My plan was to read it and earn experience points, not cheat. When Xiao Bo went inside to grab the book, Qin Long snatched it from him and asked which pages had the knowledge I'd need for the competition problem. Xiao Bo stammered out, pages 30 and 42. Qin Long ripped those exact pages out, handed the ruined book back, and told Xiao Bo to keep his mouth shut. So when Shuawei brought me the textbook, I had no idea 2 critical pages were missing. I was so grateful that I blurted out, "Shuawei, let me treat you to beef noodles at my family's restaurant." I swear I was just being nice. But her face turned completely red. Your house? No, no, no. This is moving way too fast." She clutched her bag, lowered her head, and ran off like the wind. I stood there, totally confused. It's just noodles. Why was that so scary? Because of the book borrowing errand, I got home later than usual. When I reached the entrance of our street, I saw a crowd of neighbors gathered together, whispering anxiously. I caught fragments, "Midnight snack, brother," and "someone coming for trouble at the restaurant." My heart dropped. I grabbed Uncle Gua, the beef vendor who supplies our shop, and demanded to know what was happening. He looked worried and told me not to go home, to hide at his stall instead. That only made me more certain something terrible was going on. I took off running. The system started chiming like crazy: sprinting ability 1, leg strength 1, lung capacity 1. All these new skills unlocking just from running. Any other time I would have been thrilled. Right now I didn't care. In under 3 minutes I reached the shop, barely out of breath thanks to the system's enhancements. Before today, running a few steps would have left me gasping. What I saw made my stomach sink. 6 or 7 huge, muscular men with mean faces had our little restaurant completely surrounded. These weren't street punks like the ones in the alley. These guys were on a completely different level. Our regular customers were watching from far away, too afraid to come near. I cursed myself for not bringing any stones. But even if I had them, I wasn't sure my throwing skill would be enough against men like these. What scared me most wasn't the thugs outside. It was not knowing if my parents were safe inside. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself down and walked up to the shop entrance. The thugs told me to get lost. They'd reserved the place. I told them I was the owner's son, and they grudgingly let me through. Inside, things weren't what I expected. Nobody was hurt. A big bald guy was slamming his fist on the table, yelling at my parents because they couldn't make that beef noodle from yesterday. I recognized him. He was the gold chain customer who'd ordered 7 bowls the night before. My parents were bowing and apologizing, explaining that only their son knew the recipe. The bald guy didn't believe a kid could cook like that. He declared that nobody was leaving until they got their noodles. His men outside echoed him, and my mom and dad were shaking. When they spotted me at the door, my parents rushed over like I was their savior. "My darling son is back. He'll make the noodles right away." But seeing how scared my parents were made me furious. I looked at the bald guy coldly and said, "So what if I made it? What are you going to do about it?" My parents nearly fainted. His men cracked their knuckles and started threatening me. But the bald guy, turns out he's called Brother Biao, a notorious tough guy in our county, silenced them all with one shout. Then he actually put on a friendly smile and begged me, "Little brother, don't mind them. We're starving. Please, just go make the noodles." His men couldn't believe their boss was being this humble to a high schooler. My parents tried to push me toward the kitchen, but I wasn't done being angry. I sat down at a table, casually pulled out the second-year math textbook Shuawei had borrowed for me, and started reading. Brother Biao's eye twitched. "What's this supposed to mean?" "I have a quirk," I said casually. "I need to read for a bit before cooking, or I won't be in the mood." Ding. Composure in front of dangerous people. Intimidation aura 1. His men were ready to explode, but Brother Biao held them back with a raised hand. He stared at me with those fierce eyes, the kind of stare that would make most people squirm. I completely ignored him and kept reading. Here's the thing. Qin Long had ripped out the key pages from this textbook to sabotage me. But he didn't know about my system. I didn't need to read specific content. Just scanning any page with my eyes gave me experience points. Page after page, the system kept chiming. 1, 1, 1. 10 minutes later, I had all 11 points I needed to solve that competition problem. Meanwhile, a group of terrifying gangsters had just stood there watching a teenager read a math book for 10 solid minutes without saying a word. Their eyes looked like they wanted to eat me alive. I stretched, put the book down, and smiled. Sorry for the wait, gentlemen. Let me get cooking. I strolled into the kitchen humming a tune. My parents scrambled in after me. Are you trying to give us a heart attack? My mom whispered frantically. Do you know who that is? That's Brother Bball, the most dangerous man in the county. I heard he's killed people and been to prison. I kept cooking without turning around. I don't care if he's Brother Bball or Grandpa Bball. He scared you guys, and maybe you can swallow that, but your son can't. I could tell my parents were touched. Their boy was finally growing up. But they also slapped their hands over my mouth. Keep your voice down, you idiot. While I was cooking, my skills leveled up again. I added a new seasoning on instinct, tasted the broth, and smiled. Even better than yesterday. When I brought the noodles out, those tough guys devoured them and couldn't stop praising the food. They said even the best noodle shop in the county couldn't compare. After the meal, the bald leader waved me over for a chat. His real name was Kong de Bball, Brother Bball. He handed me a fancy gold-trimmed business card. It said, Bball Brothers Studio, CEO. On the back, main services, capital recovery operations, body part adjustment services. I almost laughed. Fancy words for debt collection and beating people up for hire. He told me his operation was connected to a big corporation in the city that also ran hotels. He offered to recommend me as head chef, said I'd earn 100 or even 1,000 times more than our little shop made. I was tempted for about 1 second, then turned him down. I want money, but I don't want to get mixed up with people like him. I told him my main focus was still school. He sighed but respected my answer. The group stayed until nearly 10, drinking beer and having a good time before finally leaving. After they left, I gave my parents some business advice. Add a special item to the menu called Supreme Beef Noodles, my recipe, but only sell it on weekends. That way we'd avoid gangsters camping out in our shop every day, and the limited availability would make it more valuable. Most importantly, I wouldn't have to cook every single night. Late that night, my parents peeked in and saw me studying at my desk. They smiled at each other, thinking their rebellious son had finally grown up. What I was actually doing was solving the competition problem. System, solve this problem for me. Ding. Answer delivered to host's brain. Trigonometric formulas and solving methods flooded my mind. I wrote out the full solution step by step, put down my pen, and went to sleep satisfied. The next day in math class, the tension was thick. Nobody was paying attention to Mr. Yang's lesson. All eyes were on me and Qin Long. Time's up. Who goes first, Mr. Yang asked. Qin Long strutted to the front with total confidence, looking cool and relaxed. Girls swooned. Shuawei nervously glanced at me, but I was half asleep as usual. She had no idea I was just exhausted from another noisy night courtesy of my parents. Mr. Yang examined Qin Long's answer and nodded approvingly. Clear steps, smooth logic. The approach is a bit conservative, but correct. You pass. Qin Long smirked and sat down, looking at me like he'd already won. The class started buzzing. People figured I was doomed and about to get a disciplinary mark on my record. Yi Hong, your turn. I rubbed my tired eyes, reached into my bag, and pulled out a thick stack of paper, at least 10 pages. When I handed it to Mr. Yang, the class erupted in snickers. He's given up. He probably just copied random stuff from textbooks to fool the teacher. This is going to be hilarious. Mr. Yang's expression turned cold as he stared at the pile of papers in his hand. Yi Hong, what is the meaning of this? Mr. Yang, just open it and look, I said with a yawn. Qin Long sneered from his seat, saying the standard answer was only about 10 lines, so my thick stack of papers had to be nonsense. He urged Mr. Yang to just punish me already. Mr. Yang said nothing. He started reading my papers one by one, his face completely unreadable. But students in the front row noticed his hands were trembling. Finally, he looked up and asked seriously, Yi Hong, did you write all of this yourself? I nodded. He had one question. If I was this talented, why had my entrance exam been so terrible? I'd already prepared an answer for this. That test didn't seem important, I shrugged. So I just scribbled whatever. Then Mr. Yang announced that both Qin Long and I would represent the class at the county math competition. The class applauded. Shuawei clapped until her hands turned red. Qin Long jumped up in disbelief. Impossible. Did you get someone to do it for you too? I caught that word, too, and smiled. Interesting choice of words, Qin Long. Are you saying your answer was done by someone else? His face froze. With Mr. Yang's cold eyes on him, He decided to go all in. Fine. Yes, I had Zhao Bo from second year do it for me. The class gasped. Then he pointed at me furiously. But I know you borrowed Zhao Bo's textbook, and I ripped out the key pages. How could you possibly have solved it? Shuowei went pale with anger. Qinlong, you're despicable. I'd already noticed the missing pages, but hadn't known it was him. Without the system, his sabotage might have actually worked. I just smiled mysteriously. Who told you I used second-year knowledge to solve this, mister? Yang held up my papers, his voice ice cold. Yihong's answer contains not one, but 5 different solutions. 3 use third-year methods, and 2 use university-level mathematics. The entire class went silent with shock. The kid they'd been mocking as the class dunce had just produced college-level math solutions. Mr. Yang stripped Qinlong of his competition spot on the grounds of cheating. Qinlong looked like he was losing his mind. Then why did you even borrow the textbook if you're so smart? I picked my nose casually. Don't get the wrong idea. I just like using math textbooks as a lid for my instant noodles. Dead silence. Then Qinlong slumped back in his chair, shaking his head like a broken man. Even his seatmate quietly scooted away from him. I'd won completely. From that point on, nobody in class dared look down on me anymore. During every break between classes, my desk became the most popular spot in the room. Students, boys and girls, crowded around asking me questions. Some of the girls used studying as an excuse to lean against me, which was nice, but I could feel Shuowei's murderous glare from beside me. Qinlong got dragged to the office by Mr. Yang and disappeared for a while. When the lunch bell rang, I walked out of the school gate and was immediately ambushed by 2 familiar figures, one tall and skinny, one short and chubby. They threw their arms around me and started playfully punching my shoulders. Where have you been these past few days? What happened to our plan to hit every arcade in the county during high school? I laughed and peeled them off me. Cut it out, guys. I've got something serious to tell you. The 2 guys who jumped me outside school were my best friends since childhood. Wang Tuo, a tall skinny tech nerd, and Wei Deshang, a short chubby kid who lives for food and video games. We'd all ended up at different high schools, but we'd made a pact to hit every arcade in the county together during lunch breaks. I'd been ditching them for days, so they were pretty annoyed. I took them to a small restaurant nearby to apologize. While they inhaled their food, I tried the braised pork and frowned. Ever since my cooking skill leveled up, my taste buds had gotten picky. The pork was undercooked, greasy, and dull. I knew I could make it way better. Ding. Food critique. Cooking ability 1. I told them I couldn't hang out at lunch anymore, and that they should maybe try studying once in a while. They looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I quoted an old saying about sparrows not understanding the ambitions of swans. They called me crazy and went back to eating. From that day on, they never saw me at lunch again. Where was I going? The school library. Jitsai's library was incredible. Nearly 200,000 books, a massive single-floor building covered in blue stone tiles, with glass doors you could only enter with a student card. I planned to spend every free moment flipping through books to farm experience points. There was one problem. The library was closed during lunch. But the librarian was still there, a beautiful young woman around 20 named Zuziki. She had long black hair, a pretty oval face, and wore a pale yellow dress. I'd remembered her from the school tour at the start of the year. I begged her to let me stay and read. She thought about it and figured it was nice to have company in the empty library, so she agreed, as long as I didn't bother her. She spent her lunches studying for a higher degree, which I respected. I got to work scanning books. I skipped subjects that seemed useless for now, military science, law, agriculture, and focused on academic subjects like math and English. Since I'd already maxed out my regular textbooks, the library was the only way to keep earning experience. Ding. Math 1, English 1, History 1. By the time the afternoon bell rang, I'd gained about 5 points in each subject. I also unlocked a new ability, focus. Higher focus meant better efficiency and less fatigue. That explained why I didn't feel tired at all. I said goodbye to Zuziki and headed back to class, only to find the classroom empty. I checked the schedule. First period after lunch was PE. I sprinted to the field and barely made it on time. As I joined the lineup, I spotted Qinlong strolling across the field with his hands in his pockets. He seemed to have recovered from this morning's humiliation, but the look he gave me was even more hateful than before. I had a bad feeling. This guy was about to start trouble again. Today's PE class was basketball practice. Our teacher, Jiang Bin, is a young, athletic guy in his 20s. He split the boys and girls into separate courts to practice basic dribbling. I had zero interest in basketball. I dribbled a couple of times, then snuck off to a tree by the side of the field and closed my eyes to rest. Ding. Rest and recovery. Energy 1. Level. Beginner. Even napping counted as leveling up. I accidentally fell asleep under the warm autumn sun. Over on the girls' court, Shuawei apparently couldn't focus at all. Her friends teased her about her little boyfriend and told her to go find me while they covered for her. She jogged over to my tree, face red and sweaty from exercise. When I opened my eyes, her flushed face was hovering above me, and I caught a faint sweet scent. She really was beautiful. She shyly handed me a bottle of water. I thought it was hers and opened it for her, but she whispered it was for me. I thanked her and drank. She beamed and promised to bring me something every day. We smiled at each other, one of those nice, awkward teenage moments. But someone was watching. Qin Long. He snatched a basketball from another kid, started dribbling across the court, and when he got close enough, accidentally, launched the ball straight at me with full force. Die! Yihong! He screamed in his head. My enhanced hearing picked up something flying toward us. I saw the ball growing bigger in the corner of my eye. Ding! Reaction speed 1. I stepped in front of Shuawei and punched the incoming ball away. Ding! Punching power 1. My fist stung like crazy, skin scraped raw, but at least it didn't hit us. Shuawei panicked when she realized what happened and grabbed my hand, fretting over the broken skin. Qin Long shrugged innocently. Oops, the ball just slipped. Did I scare the big genius? Shuawei was shaking with fury. That was attempted murder. Coach Jiang came over to see what was going on. Qin Long, sounding perfectly reasonable, claimed that I had been begging to challenge him to a basketball match, but he'd been too polite to accept, and now I was getting upset about it. It was a clever trap. If I denied it, I'd look like a coward in front of everyone, especially Shuawei. If I accepted, Qin Long could humiliate me at his best sport. He'd finally learned to play to his strengths. Too bad for him. I wasn't afraid. That's right, coach, I said calmly. I heard Qin Long is great at shooting, and I'd like to have a little contest. Qin Long blinked. He'd planned a one-on-one dribbling match where his size would crush me, but a shooting contest worked too. He'd played basketball his whole life and figured no one in the entire first-year class could beat him. Coach Jiang, being young and loving a good show, dragged us both onto the court and called the whole class over to watch. Within seconds, every kid in Class 18 had crowded around the court. The rules were simple. Stand at the free throw line, shoot 5 balls each, whoever makes more wins. Qin Long started warming up while I just stood there like a total beginner. Everyone was already predicting his victory. He'd been a sports star his whole life, and even the school basketball team had tried to recruit him. Looking at us side by side, he was clearly bigger and stronger. The only person cheering for me was Shuawei. Hong, you can do it, Qin Long smirked. Weaklings go first. I tossed his own words back at him. You go ahead. I don't want to crush your confidence before you even get a turn. Coach Jiang secretly gave me a thumbs up for that one. Qin Long went first, showing off with fancy dribbling that made the girls swoon. He sank 4 out of 5 shots, 80% accuracy. Pretty impressive, honestly. He threw the ball at me with a cocky grin. Even if you miss all 5, nobody will laugh. That's just your real level. I picked up the ball, weighed it in my hands, and held it above my head in a weird position. What kind of amateur form is that? People laughed. Even Coach Jiang shook his head. But in my mind, the system was already working. Proficient level throwing ability activated. Detecting target, basket. Calculating ball weight. Wind direction. Wrist force. Angle. I released. Swish. Nothing but net. A perfect shot that didn't touch anything except the net passing through. Dead silence. Then confused whispers. Did that just happen? Second ball. Same result. Another flawless swish. The crowd erupted. 2 consecutive perfect shots was no fluke. I clearly knew what I was doing. My throwing ability from all those pebbles in the alley translated perfectly to basketball. But I was getting bored at the free throw line. This is too easy, I told Coach Jiang. Mind if I shoot from farther back? I stepped beyond the free throw line and nailed my 3rd shot. Another swish. People jumped to their feet. Students from other classes started crowding around to see what the commotion was about. For the last 2 balls, I decided to end things with style. I asked Coach Jiang to toss me an extra ball, then walked all the way back to the three-point line. I turned around so my back faced the basket. Then I closed my eyes. I held one ball in each hand, arms stretched out to my sides. He's going for a blind, backwards, double three-pointer, someone screamed. I flicked both wrists. The two balls sailed through the air one after the other and dropped cleanly through the hoop. Both perfect swishes. 5 for 5, all nothing but net. The last two from the three-point line, backwards, with my eyes closed. The entire field exploded. Cheering, clapping, whistling. Kids from every class were on their feet. Some guy who'd been scoffing about, just some kid shooting baskets, stood frozen with his jaw hanging open, his own basketball rolling away on the ground unnoticed. For that moment, the whole field belonged to me. As for Qinlong, he'd quietly slipped through the crowd and disappeared. What was supposed to be a normal PE class turned into my personal show. Everyone forgot about Qinlong completely. Boys crowded around me asking about basketball tips, while the girls watched with starry eyes. Ding. Group admiration triggered. Charisma 1. Ding. Flirting skill 5. Level upgraded to proficient. What I didn't know was that someone was watching from a classroom window. Up in the second-year building, Limuya, the girl I'd rescued in the alley, had been spacing out for 3 days straight, unable to find me anywhere. In a school of 3,000 students. But when the noise from the basketball court drew her attention, she spotted me in the crowd and shot out of her seat. She nudged her seatmate and found out I was in class 18, first year. "You can't escape me," she murmured with a grin. Back on the ground, I barely escaped the mob of fans. Coach Jiang tried to get me to stay after school to discuss basketball techniques, but I knew better. I could shoot thanks to my throwing skill, but I knew nothing about actual basketball. One real conversation with a professional, and I'd be exposed. I politely declined. The rest of the afternoon, the girls in class kept finding excuses to approach me. First homework questions, now basketball talk. Shuawei turned into a fierce little tiger, blocking every girl who came near my desk. Her excuse: Ahong needs to prepare for the math competition. Don't bother him. I appreciated the peace and quiet, honestly. After school, Shuawei asked to walk home together, and I agreed. But before we could leave, a round figure squeezed through the back door of our classroom. Chubby Zhou Hao, the kid with the famous beauty ranking list. Turns out Zhou Hao doesn't just collect information about pretty girls and read comics. He actually dreams of becoming a manga artist. After seeing my basketball performance, he'd been begging me to let him use me as the main character for a basketball manga. I finally gave in. Fine, draw whatever you want. He was about to say something else when his eyes went completely blank, staring past me. Every guy in the hallway had the same frozen expression. I turned around and smiled. It was Li Muya, walking down the corridor like a graceful white lotus, calm and beautiful. I asked Zhou Hao who she was. He looked at me like I'd committed a crime. "You don't know Li Muya? Class beauty of year 2, class 3. The legendary Ice Queen, who never smiles." A magazine tried to recruit her as a model on her first day, and she turned them down. She's top 10 on the school's official beauty rankings. And you're telling me you don't know who she is? He was genuinely furious at my ignorance. As Li Muya walked closer, Zhou Hao scrambled to fix his hair and tried to talk to her, but she didn't even glance at him. Her eyes were locked on me the entire time. "We meet again," she said with a smile that practically lit up the hallway. Every guy nearby looked like their hearts were melting. "Yeah," I smiled back. We both started to say, "that night," at the exact same time, then laughed. It felt less like two strangers and more like two people who'd known each other forever. She held out her hand. "Year 2, class 3. Li Muya, year 1, class 18. Yi Hong." I shook her hand. Same soft feeling as that night in the alley. Zhou Hao's brain short-circuited trying to process what he was seeing. Shuawei puffed her cheeks and asked with a hint of jealousy, "Ahong, you two already know each other." I told them the story as we walked. Shuawei's emotions went on a roller coaster, scared, worried, impressed, and by the end she was holding Muya's hand with genuine concern. The two girls hit it off immediately, chatting like old friends. I somehow ended up feeling like the third wheel. At a crossroads, Muya said goodbye. She had her part-time job at the clothing store. I told her to get home early. She smiled warmly, then watched us leave. I didn't see the determined look on her face as she whispered to herself, "Li Muya, fight for your happiness." What I also didn't know was that back at school, Mr. Yang had taken my math competition answer to the principal's office. He asked Principal Zhang Chanjiang to reserve one of the school's 2 precious guaranteed admission spots to Jiang University, the top school in the province, for me. The principal acknowledged my talent, but said he wanted to wait and observe. Mr. Yang left disappointed. Moments later, the principal got a phone call from a wealthy school board member asking him to save that same admission spot. The principal agreed without hesitation. Outside the door, Mr. Yang overheard and smiled bitterly. I wanted to do something meaningful before retirement, but I guess you don't have that kind of luck, kid. I knew nothing about any of this. When I got home, I was stunned to find a massive line of people outside our restaurant. Nearly every neighbor on the street was queued up. My parents were desperately explaining that the supreme beef noodles were weekend only and limited supply. But nobody cared. Uncle Guo, the beef vendor, was leading the charge. Come on, midnight snack brother. Don't keep the good stuff to yourselves. Apparently, Brother Bball and his crew had been spreading the word about our noodles all over town. Overnight, our tiny shop had become famous. The first wave of curious customers was our own neighbors. I stood there half laughing, half groaning, trying to figure out how to handle this mess. Everyone, listen up, I shouted, standing in front of the crowd outside our shop. Nobody paid attention. They were all talking over each other. So I yelled louder. Shut up. Ding. Intimidation Aura 1. That worked. I explained that the supreme beef noodles required complicated ingredients and preparation, so we could only serve them on weekends. I asked for their understanding. The truth was, even though I'd taught my parents every step, their version just didn't taste as good as mine. Must be the system's proficient cooking bonus. My dad proudly told everyone that I was the inventor of the dish. That caused a stir. Uncle Gui gave me a thumbs up. Old Ma from the pastry shop across the street smacked his son Xiao Ma on the head, comparing him unfavorably to me. Xiao Ma just scowled and walked off muttering, "Big deal. It's just noodles. Something about that guy always rubbed me the wrong way. He constantly looked like the world owed him money." That night, my family discussed strategy. Weekends would be great for business, but Monday through Friday our regular food couldn't compete. My dad joked that customers refused to eat his noodles now that they'd tasted mine. I proposed inventing a brand new dish that my parents could make without my help. My mom knocked me on the head. Inventing recipes isn't that easy. Your grandpa traveled across provinces to create that beef noodle recipe. I smiled. How do you know until you try? I got on our old desktop computer and started researching recipes. I focused on pastries. They last several days, can be mass-produced, and wouldn't compete with our noodles. Ding. Computer skills 1. Ding. Cooking ability 1. Over the next few days, I settled into a routine. School, library, school during the day, recipe research at night. Qin Long had finally stopped bothering me after embarrassing himself so many times. Meanwhile, a brand new pastry recipe was taking shape in my mind. Then Saturday arrived. When my parents opened the shop at 6:30 a.m., a line of nearly 100 people stretched down half the street. Word had spread far beyond our neighborhood. People from all over the county had come. Brother Bball was first in line, slapping his bald head with excitement. Finally open. I've been dying for this. We'd prepared extra tables outside and even borrowed space from neighboring shops, but it still wasn't enough. People stood eating their noodles without seats. The sounds of slurping and the amazing aroma filled the whole street. Customers raved about the food, some cursing themselves for not ordering 2 bowls, others planning to come at 4 in the morning next weekend. But across the street, Xiao Ma watched our success with dark eyes. He turned to a guy in a baseball cap beside him and said quietly, "You know what to do?" "Of course," the guy replied. "Find a fly in the noodles, right? Easy." He pulled his cap low and joined the line. Meanwhile, 2 small figures were walking up the street toward our shop. 2 beautiful figures showed up at our shop that morning. Shuawei in a pale yellow dress and Muya in a white t-shirt and jeans. They'd volunteered to help out. My parents were stunned when these 2 pretty girls walked right past the line and said they were here to work. When I popped my head out of the kitchen to introduce them as my classmates, my mom and dad exchanged confused looks. Is our son dating? Wait, 2 of them at once. Having them help made a huge difference. Plus, 2 gorgeous girls serving customers attracted even more people, especially guys. The line outside actually grew longer instead of shorter. Then disaster. We ran out of beef. My dad announced that we were sold out. A guy in a baseball cap started making a scene, complaining loudly and stirring up the crowd. But before things got ugly, one of Brother Biao's men stepped out of a nearby alley, shoved the troublemaker aside, and told him to get lost. He quietly explained to me that Brother Biao felt bad about scaring my parents before, so he posted a guard nearby to keep troublemakers away. Turns out the cap guy was a hired agitator. I watched him run off and made a mental note of it. We closed before noon. I estimated we'd made around 3,000 yuan just that morning from 10 yuan bowls. I brought out 2 special large bowls with extra beef and fried eggs for Shuawei and Muya. They teased me while eating, saying it was unfair that I was good at studying, sports, and cooking. The 3 of us had a nice, warm time together. After the girls left, my parents started debating which one would make a better future daughter-in-law. Mom preferred Shuawei's warm personality. Dad liked Muya's cool elegance. I ignored them both. Upstairs, I had a blueprint on my desk, a pastry recipe I'd been designing. I needed to buy ingredients and start experimenting. Before heading out, I washed my face. Ding. Appearance 1. A pimple that had been forming on my forehead vanished instantly. I discovered this trick a few days ago. The system could even fix acne. I took a shower to get rid of the kitchen smell, put on a casual shirt, and used my dad's hair gel. Ding. Outfit coordination. Charisma 1. Ding. Hairstyling. Charisma 1. I grabbed some money from the shop and headed out to Manhwa Market, the biggest market in the county, to buy everything I needed for my new pastry recipe. Since there's no bus to the south side of town, I needed a vehicle to haul ingredients. I borrowed an electric 3-wheeler from Uncle Dong, the neighbor who runs a barbecue shop. He's a jolly, round-faced guy who's good friends with my dad. He agreed instantly, but his wife muttered about how he should be charging rent. Thanks to my enhanced hearing, I caught every word. I offered to pay, but Uncle Dong insisted it was free or nothing. The 3-wheeler was ancient, rusty, rattling, probably as old as Uncle Dong himself. People on the road pointed and laughed. Since when can scrap metal drive? Hey kid, value your life? I wanted to cover my face with a bag. Ding. Driving ability 1. 20 minutes later, I reached Manhwa Market, the biggest in the county. I worked through my shopping list, going from stall to stall, bags piling up on my body. Ding. Carrying heavy loads. Strength 1. Arm power 1. At a bean shop, the middle-aged owner tried flirting with me, teasing me to call her Big Sister instead of Annie for a discount. The system actually chimed in, saying my charisma and flirting skills could trigger a discount if I played along. So I swallowed my pride and called her Sister. She laughed so hard she sold me 10 pounds of red beans at half price. Maybe I could make a living off my face alone. I was about to head home when I heard a desperate scream nearby. An elderly man had fallen to the ground, pointing at a figure running through the crowd. Kidnapper. He took my granddaughter. Someone help. Nobody could hear him over the noise of the market. The kidnapper, clutching a little girl in a pink dress, was already disappearing into the sea of people. The old man had hurt his back and couldn't even stand. He just sat there crying helplessly. This hit me hard. When I was little, I'd almost been kidnapped myself at a market. I hate child traffickers more than anything. I closed my eyes and focused all my attention on my ears, filtering through hundreds of voices, vendors shouting, people haggling, phone conversations, searching for one specific sound. Ding. Sound discrimination. Hearing upgraded to proficient level. Suddenly, all the noise became organized and clear. And there it was, a tiny, weak cry. Grandpa, got you. I dropped all my shopping bags next to the old man. Watch my stuff. I'll bring your granddaughter back. Before he could respond, I plunged into the crowd. My body weaved through gaps between people like a fish. Ding. Flexibility 1. Dodge ability 1. Sprint speed 1. I silently thanked my parents' noisy nighttime habits for training my hearing all those nights. Just before the market exit, I finally spotted the kidnapper's back. The kidnapper was wearing all black with a face mask, holding the little girl under his arm as she struggled. Some guys near the market exit tried to stop him, but he shoved them aside. Then a black motorcycle pulled up, his partner, and they took off with the girl. I didn't hesitate. I sprinted to Uncle Dong's 3-wheeler and floored it. So there we were, a roaring motorcycle up ahead, and my rattling pile of rust chasing behind. Clank, clank, clank. The motorcycle rider glanced back and laughed. Some kid in a junk tricycle is following us. His partner sneered. That thing can't catch us. Just head south out of the county. Past the market was an abandoned construction site full of rocks, steel, and rubble. The motorcycle slowed down on the rough terrain, but it was still faster than me. The gap was widening. Then the system chimed. Driving ability upgraded to proficient. Suddenly, I felt completely one with the vehicle. I slammed the gas and started weaving through obstacles like I was in a street racing movie. The three-wheeler drifted through gaps between debris like a ghost. The whole frame was shaking and overheating from being pushed way beyond its limits. The kidnappers looked back and nearly lost their eyes. A rusty three-wheeler was somehow gaining on their motorcycle. The look on my face must have been terrifying, because the driver panicked and hit a rock. The motorcycle lurched, its back wheel lifting off the ground. My chance. I hit a small dirt ramp, went airborne, and slammed the three-wheeler straight into the motorcycle. Bang! Everyone went flying. I'd already prepared. I leaped off, caught the little girl midair, and twisted my body underneath her as we hit the ground. I skidded several meters on my back. The pain was the worst I'd ever felt in my life. Ding! Pain resistance 1. Recovery ability 1. A cool sensation spread across my wounds, easing the pain. The three-wheeler was completely destroyed. Wheels popped off, black smoke pouring out. Sorry, Uncle Dong. I smiled at the little girl. Don't be scared. Big Brother's here to save you. She wiped her tears and nodded bravely. Sienna isn't scared. Sienna is very brave. The two kidnappers got up, their masks gone, revealing scarred, ugly faces. They were hurt, but still mobile, and they charged at me with fists raised, swearing to break my limbs. I told Sienna to hide behind a wall, then faced the two grown men. My heart was pounding, partly from nerves, partly from excitement. They swung at me simultaneously. But with my enhanced focus and vision, their fists seemed to move in slow motion. I could see every detail of their punches. Ding! Reaction 1. Dodge ability 1. I ducked. Both fists sailed over my head. Then I spotted their openings and drove my fists into both their stomachs at the same time. Ding! Arm strength 1. Punching power 1. They doubled over, vomiting bile, and collapsed to their knees. 2 hits, 2 knockdowns. I stood over them, cracking my knuckles. Punching people was way more satisfying than throwing pebbles. I walked toward them with a smile that definitely wasn't friendly. The two kidnappers were shaking as I walked toward them. I joked about selling them to another country, which scared them white. Then I ripped their jackets into strips and tied them up tight. Ding! Binding technique 1. I really didn't need that skill on my resume. They kept begging and offering money, so I pulled off my socks and stuffed them in their mouths. Let's just say those socks had character. Their eyes bulged, and they nearly passed out from the smell. Peace at last. The three-wheeler was totally wrecked. Uncle Dong was going to kill me. But little Sienna tugged my sleeve and pointed at the fallen motorcycle. Smart kid. 5 minutes later, I was riding the motorcycle with Sienna in my arms, and the two kidnappers tied to the back by cloth strips, stumbling along behind us. When I hit the gas, their screams echoed across the empty field. I might have enjoyed that a little too much. By the time we got back to the market, it was almost dark. Our bizarre little parade. A teenager on a motorcycle with a little girl, dragging 2 battered men behind, drew a massive crowd. The police were already there, questioning the old grandfather. Sienna leaped from my arms and ran to him. They hugged and cried together. That made everything worth it. Then the kidnappers did something nobody expected. They threw themselves at the police officer's legs, sobbing, "Please arrest us. Take us away. We're kidnappers. Just lock us up." Everyone stared. They'd never seen criminals so desperate to be caught. People were wondering what on earth I'd done to them. 2 officers approached me, a tough-looking middle-aged man named Duan Feihu from the Criminal Investigation Unit, and his young trainee Song Lingling, who was barely older than me and looked at me with obvious curiosity and a hint of competitive annoyance. This was her first real case, and a high schooler had already solved it before she arrived. The crowd cheered. People called me a young hero and started snapping photos. The grandfather grabbed my hands with tears streaming down his face, thanking me over and over. I asked nervously if I'd get in trouble for roughing up the kidnappers. Officer Duan laughed and said of course not, but he'd need me to come to the station to give a statement. I agreed, then glanced at all my grocery bags still sitting on the ground. He promised to have someone deliver them to my house. Sienna and her grandfather were sent home by the police. Before leaving, The little girl waved at me happily, and her grandfather, who said his family name was Kai, promised to visit our restaurant to thank me properly. I gave him the address without thinking much of it. I spent the whole evening at the police station giving my statement. By the time I came out around 10 o'clock, Officer Duan and his trainee Song Lingling walked me to the door. They'd pieced together the full story and clearly didn't see me as just some kid anymore. They both gave me a formal salute. Lingling even asked if I'd consider joining the police force, which earned her another glare from her boss. Officer Duan quietly told her later, I overheard with my enhanced hearing that a teenager with my kind of courage and fighting skills probably wasn't ordinary. He suspected I might have powerful people behind me. He was wrong about that, but I didn't mind the respect. A police car drove me home. When we pulled up to our street, only our shop's lights were still on. My parents were standing outside in the dark, watching for me. Mom grabbed me in a hug and cried. Dad didn't say anything, but his eyes said enough. They'd been told what happened, but they couldn't relax until they saw me in person. Mom inspected me head to toe. She was confused when she saw my shirt was torn to shreds on the back, but my skin was perfectly smooth underneath, not a single scratch. That was my beginner-level recovery ability at work. Even I was impressed. I promised them I wouldn't do anything that dangerous again, and they finally let me go to bed. Lying there that night, I pulled up my status screen. In less than a week since getting the system, I'd unlocked dozens of abilities. Over 10 had reached proficient level, all my school subjects, cooking, flirting, driving, and hearing. Each proficient level skill had shown a dramatic quality jump. Today's rescue wouldn't have been possible without proficient hearing to locate the girl and proficient driving to chase down that motorcycle on a rattling three-wheeler. My next goal was clear: get every ability to proficient as fast as possible. I slept deeply that night, but plenty of other people in the county couldn't sleep. They were still thinking about our noodles. Someone wrote a social media post titled, "If you haven't tried these noodles, don't call yourself a local." It included photos and a passionate review praising the supreme beef noodles from every angle. The post went viral overnight. Comments ranged from, "I'm bringing a knife to your house if I can't get a bowl tomorrow," to, "My wife made me promise to line up at 5 a.m. Now I'll have to go at 4. Ironically, a separate article about a teenage hero who'd fought 2 kidnappers at the market got way less attention than the noodle review. The next morning, I was up before 5. My parents were still asleep. I crept downstairs to the kitchen to begin working on my new pastry recipe. I woke up before 5 and snuck down to the kitchen to work on my new pastry. With my proficient cooking ability guiding me, I mixed glutinous rice flour, sugar, osmanthus flowers, and red beans, then steamed it for 20 minutes. What came out was beautiful, a round, translucent red cake dotted with golden flower petals, like stars embedded in a ruby. I was sure 9 out of 10 girls would stop in their tracks seeing this thing. I took a bite. Sweet, soft, warm, and incredibly satisfying. I named it Supreme Osmanthus Red Bean Cake. Ding! New dish invented. Cooking 5 by 6. The line outside was already twice as long as yesterday. That viral social media post had done its job. Shuewe and Muya showed up early to help again. We'd ordered extra beef this time, but it was still running low by mid-morning. Then trouble started outside. I heard a shrill voice screaming, "No more borrowing. Get that brat Yihong out here." It was Xiao Chunlan, Uncle Dong's wife. I went outside and found her throwing our customers out of her barbecue shop's borrowed seating area, calling me a thief in front of everyone. She was demanding I return the three-wheeler. That's when it hit me. I'd been so busy that I'd completely forgotten to tell Uncle Dong about the destroyed vehicle. But instead of asking what happened, this woman was publicly accusing me of stealing. Uncle Dong himself wasn't angry exactly. He just looked sad. He said the old three-wheeler had sentimental value after all these years together. He just wanted it back. I sighed. "Uncle Dong, I can't return the old one. It's gone. But I'll buy you a brand new one." His wife laughed nastily. "A new one? Do you know how much that costs? You're just a broke student. Selling a few bowls of noodles doesn't make you rich." My mom fired back, and my dad promised they'd cover it. But the damage was being done. I could hear customers in line whispering about me being untrustworthy. Some were even leaving. If I didn't fix this fast, our shop's reputation could be ruined. Then, at the far end of the street, a convoy of luxury cars appeared. 4 black Mercedes sedans flanking a silver BMW with the license plate, Jiang, 8888. People in line parted to let them through, whispering in awe. Someone recognized the plate number as belonging to the Kai Group's chairman. The convoy stopped right in front of our shop. Bodyguards in black suits emerged and opened the BMW's door with an umbrella. A little girl in a flowered dress leaped out of the car. The moment she saw me, her face lit up with the biggest smile, and she launched herself straight into my arms. Big brother. We meet again. It was Sienner. Big brother. Sienner clung to me, refusing to let go. I hadn't expected to see her again so soon. From the silver BMW stepped a commanding middle-aged man in an expensive gray suit, the kind of person who clearly held power. People in the crowd recognized him immediately as Kai Jiannan, one of the top 10 entrepreneurs in the county, head of the Kai Group. Then he helped the old man, Sienner's grandfather, out of the car. His name was Kai Hung. Some businessman in the crowd rushed over just to say hello to Kai Jiannan, practically glowing when he got a cold, in response. That's how much influence this family had. Kai Hung told me they'd come specifically to thank me. Kai Jiannan handed me his business card with both hands and said, Xiao Yi, if you ever need anything, come find me at the Kai Group. I'll make it happen. The crowd gasped with envy. People spend years trying to get a meeting with this man, and here he was making promises to a teenager. Old Mr. Kai noticed the tense atmosphere and asked what was wrong. I explained the whole mess with the three-wheeler. He shook his head with a laugh, then turned to the crowd and told the full story of yesterday's rescue in a booming voice. How I'd chased 2 kidnappers on a rusty three-wheeler across an abandoned construction site and fought them both to save his granddaughter. A hero like this, do you really think he'd steal a tricycle? He declared. People suddenly connected the dots with the police article from last night. The crowd burst into applause. I felt the system chime, reputation won, being praised for good deeds. But Xiao Chunlan still wouldn't quit. How do we know this isn't all staged? She sneered. Slap. Uncle Dong smacked her across the face. Are you insane? You think a man like Mr. Kai would come here to act in a play? He was furious, yelling at her to stop embarrassing them. She collapsed on the ground crying, and honestly, some of what she said wasn't entirely wrong. She complained that Uncle Dong kept lending things out and letting neighbors use their space while their own business suffered. I realized I'd been so focused on growing our shop that I hadn't considered how it affected the people around us. I need to think about expanding our own space. Kai Jiannan had been watching this whole scene with cool eyes. He snapped his fingers and called over his secretary, a sharp-looking woman in a professional skirt suit and red-framed glasses. Have someone bring the best three-wheeled motorcycle from our subsidiary. Now, I looked at his business card again. Kai Group, main business, vehicle sales, including cars, motorcycles, and utility vehicles. Old Mr. Kai chuckled. My son might not be able to get you everything on short notice, but vehicles? That's the one thing he's never short of. 10 minutes later, a brand new three-wheeled motorcycle rolled up to our shop. It was gorgeous, sapphire blue, sleek design, gleaming in the sunlight. A crowd gathered around it instantly. Uncle Dong and Xiao Chunlan stopped fighting and stared at the beautiful machine with wide eyes, too intimidated to even touch it. The guy from Fading Company explained to the crowd that this wasn't just any three-wheeler. It was a Poseidon, brand vehicle developed by the Kai Group using cutting-edge technology, exported to Western countries. When someone guessed it cost 50,000 yuan, the man scoffed. 500,000. Xiao Chunlan nearly fainted hearing that number. Kai Jiannan looked coldly at Uncle Dong and his wife. This vehicle is yours. Don't bother Xiao Yi again. Uncle Dong couldn't believe it. He and Xiao Chunlan bowed over and over, thanking Kai Jiannan. He redirected them to thank me instead, but I couldn't resist a dig. I don't deserve your thanks. After all, I'm just a broke student. They remembered Xiao Chunlan's earlier insults and could only smile awkwardly. After the drama, I lost my appetite for selling noodles and closed shop early despite the groans from customers still in line. I invited the Kai family inside. My dad broke out his best tea, the kind he'd been saving and never dared drink himself. Shuewei and Muya helped my mom clean up, stealing glances at me the whole time, amazed that I could chat so casually with someone as powerful as Kai Jiannan. Ding. Composure in front of business elite. Intimidation Aura 1. Sienner had fallen asleep in my arms, drooling on my shirt and smiling in her dreams. Ding. Childcare ability 1. Old Mr. Kai laughed. saying Sienna had talked about me all night after the rescue and wouldn't stop saying my name. I silently hoped it wasn't my proficient-level flirting skill affecting a child. That would be terrible. Kai Jianan looked around our tiny shop and frowned. Xiaoyi, this place is too small. Ever thought about relocating? He then casually offered to give me one of his company's storefronts on East Street, the most expensive commercial area in the county, where monthly rent alone costs 10 to 20,000 yuan. My mom nearly dropped her cloth. I turned him down. He'd already solved one huge problem for me, and I don't like owing people favors. My mom was mentally screaming at me. Kai Jianan wouldn't take no for an answer. He compromised. Fine, I'll rent it to you. 50 years, 0 rent. Refuse this, and you're disrespecting me. I had no choice but to accept. My mom was over the moon. 50 years rent-free was basically the same as a gift. Then I noticed old Mr. Kai kept rubbing his lower back and wincing. He explained it was chronic soreness from high blood pressure, made worse by being shoved by the kidnappers yesterday. High blood pressure? An idea hit me. I handed Sienna to her father and ran to the kitchen. A minute later, I came out carrying a bamboo steamer. The sweet, warm aroma of osmanthus filled the room. Sienna's eyes fluttered open. What smells so good? I opened the lid to reveal my supreme osmanthus red bean cake. Every woman in the room, Shuawei, Muya, my mom, couldn't take their eyes off it. The translucent red surface with golden flower petals looked like edible jewelry. I broke off a piece for Sienna. She popped it in her mouth and her eyes squeezed shut with happiness. Yummy. More. Then I cut a slice for Mr. Kai, try this. It can actually help with blood pressure. He smiled politely and took a bite, clearly not expecting much. He'd eaten red bean cake before. But the moment it hit his tongue, his eyes went wide. The moment Mr. Kai bit into the cake, warmth spread through his whole body. The stiffness in his lower back loosened up dramatically. He stared at the pastry like it was some kind of miracle medicine. This is better than a doctor's massage. What is this? Kai Jianan tried a piece too. His eyes widened. I've traveled the world eating fine food, but I've never tasted anything like this. Xiaoyi, you made this? I nodded and explained it was my latest creation, the supreme osmanthus red bean cake. Since it helped Mr. Kai's condition, I packed up everything I had and gave it all to him. He could come back anytime he wanted more. Kai Jianan sighed deeply. Our family owes you more and more, Xiaoyi. You saved Sienna, and now you've helped my father's chronic condition. If you weren't still in high school, I'd hand you a whole subsidiary company. Then it hit him. I really was just a teenager. He offered me a permanent position as a subsidiary general manager whenever I graduated. My parents were doing their best to look calm, but I could tell they were bursting with pride inside. Shuawei and Muya stared at me in awe. But honestly, with my system, I had no intention of staying in this small county forever. My ambitions were much bigger. When the Kai family left before noon, Sienna threw a crying fit because she didn't want to leave me. I had to bribe her with all sorts of promises before she'd get in the car. After they left, I made noodles for Shuawei and Muya as usual. But today they barely touched their food. Instead, they just stared at me with this intense, desperate look that honestly creeped me out. Just say whatever it is, I told them. They both jumped up, grabbed my arms, and started shaking me. Hey Hong, we want to try that cake too. Please. The sensation of them pressing against my arms was very distracting. Let go first, and I'll make some right now. I fled to the kitchen while they high-fived behind me. Apparently, they'd been dying to try the cake ever since they saw it, but were too shy to ask in front of the Kai family. When I'd given everything away to Mr. Kai, they'd nearly lost it. Since I'd planned for my parents to handle the cake production going forward, I brought them into the kitchen and taught them the recipe several times. Their version wasn't as good as mine, but it was more than good enough to sell. Then I made a special batch for the girls to take home. Shuawei and Muya asked if I was stopping the noodle sales. I told them yes, for now. It was ironic. Most businesses fail because they can't sell enough. My problem was the opposite. If I kept selling every weekend, I'd be trapped in the kitchen with no time for anything else. The girls seemed a little sad about not having a reason to come help on weekends anymore. I teased them. Don't tell me you actually want to come every weekend. They both turned red and bolted. That evening, to celebrate a great weekend, our family went out for dinner. My mom had been dreaming about a new Western restaurant in town, but could never justify the cost. Now was the time. But as we headed out, I noticed her bag looked suspiciously heavy. Mom, what's in that bag? She blushed. Just the cash from this weekend's sales. I don't feel safe leaving it at home. She was literally carrying around 10,000 yuan in cash on her body. I love my mom, but she's something else. The restaurant Mom had been dreaming about was called Saint Lawn, a fancy French place on East Street. The moment we walked in, everything screamed luxury. Golden decor, spotless floors, elegant staff. A tall blonde foreign waitress handed us menus. My parents had no idea what to order. They'd never eaten Western food before. When I started browsing the menu, the system kicked in. My proficient cooking ability let me analyze every dish just from the photos. I could see the entire preparation process for each steak in my mind. I started flipping through the menu slowly to learn as many recipes as possible. The waitress got impatient and told me to hurry up. I noticed she was eager to go serve a flashy-looking couple at the next table, a fat guy with a gold chain and a woman dripping in jewelry. I quickly ordered 2 medium-well filet mignons for my parents and a medium-rare sirloin for myself. When the food arrived, my parents struggled badly with a knife and fork. Mom especially was sweating, forgetting everything she'd practiced at home. She kept using the wrong utensils, like scooping soup with a dessert spoon. After the system taught me proper technique, I helped them one-on-one. When Mom finally got it, she squealed with excitement. A bit too loudly for this quiet restaurant. No class, the fat guy at the next table sneered. Mom immediately apologized, her head down. She knew people here were wealthy and didn't want trouble. The fat guy was paying his bill, and he tipped the blonde waitress 100 yuan. She gave him her sweetest smile. Then he turned to mock us. If you don't know how to eat Western food, don't come here pretending to be sophisticated. Look at how you're dressed. He even complained to the waitress about the restaurant letting people like us in. Mom's face went from red to white. I saw sadness flash in her eyes, and it hit me like a knife. I spoke up, my voice cold. Not knowing Western table manners doesn't mean someone lacks class. Plenty of people with far more dignity than you have never eaten at a place like this. I picked up the aperitif glass, downed it in one go, and held up the empty glass. Aperitif. I'll drink it whenever I feel like it. A meal is just a process. People who hide behind fake etiquette to pretend they're upper class are the ones who truly have no manners. I could eat with my bare hands if I wanted. What are you going to do about it? The waitress smiled and said eating with your hands was indeed impolite. I looked at her evenly. You're right, but that's not what a restaurant employee should be saying right now. If I were your manager, you'd be fired. Your job is to de-escalate conflicts, not take sides. Though I understand, he did tip you 100 yuan. Her smile froze. She'd never met a Chinese customer who'd talk to her like that. And by the way, I continued, our lady here spoke a bit loudly and already apologized. That should be enough. Meanwhile, someone else has been barking insults like a rabid dog. It's pretty obvious who actually has class and who doesn't. Ding. Debate ability 1. Intimidation aura 1. My dad secretly gave me a thumbs up under the table. Mom wiped her eyes, touched and proud. The fat guy's face turned purple. You've got a smart mouth, kid. Whatever. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with some country bumpkin. He stormed off with his companion. The fat guy was heading out but couldn't resist one more insult, calling us country bumpkins pretending to be rich. My mom muttered, just a nouveau riche, under her breath, which set him off again. I smiled and said, actually, when it comes to being nouveau riche, you can't even compete with Our Lady here. Then I, accidentally, unzipped my mom's bag, revealing the massive pile of cash inside. The guy's eyes nearly popped out. Who walks around casually carrying over 10,000 yuan? He realized my mom was a more authentic, nouveau riche than he'd ever be. He grabbed his woman and fled the restaurant. We finished our meal in peace. When it was time to pay, the floor manager himself came over instead of a regular waiter. He apologized for the poor service, but the blonde waitress was right behind him, clearly having reported me as a troublemaker. I decided to teach them one more lesson. I raised my voice so the whole restaurant could hear and started listing every flaw in their sirloin steak. The thickness was wrong. The marination time was too short. They hadn't pre-treated it with proper olive oil and sea salt. All knowledge straight from my proficient cooking ability. The other diners were fascinated, nodding along. The manager started sweating. The waitress stood frozen. Being French herself, she could tell I wasn't making things up. Then I casually mentioned that a friend of mine was thinking about opening a steak restaurant in town, and that with St. Land's quality as the competition, his business would thrive. I had no such friend, of course. But the manager believed me completely and nearly collapsed with panic. He offered to comp our entire meal as an apology. My mom tugged my sleeve. We'd eaten, we'd gotten justice, no need to push further. I agreed and told them to stop looking down on people. On our way out, Mom tipped the blonde waitress 100 yuan with the most satisfied expression I'd ever seen. On the walk home, she joked, "Maybe I'll open my own Western restaurant right across from St. Lawn." I laughed, but the idea actually stuck in my mind. That night, my parents sat me down for a serious talk. They wanted to know if I was really their son or if some genius had possessed my body. I needed a believable explanation, so I told them the truth, sort of. "Everything I know, I learned at the school library," I said mysteriously. "Where do you think I spend every lunch break?" They bought it. My dad even said he wished he could visit this magical library. Mom shot back, "You can barely read. You probably couldn't even understand the book covers." While they bickered, I sat down at our ancient desktop computer. After a painfully long boot up, I borrowed Dad's phone, opened a web page, and started typing rapidly, clicking, scrolling, tapping between devices. After a while, I leaned back with a satisfied smile. I'd just taken care of something important. That night, I set up a public social media account for our restaurant called Yes Food. I'd gotten the idea from that viral post about our noodles. Why let strangers do our advertising when I could do it myself? I wrote an article promoting the supreme osmanthus red bean cake with beautiful photos and detailed descriptions. My proficient level Chinese ability automatically polished the writing, fixing structure and removing errors. Ding. Social media management 1. Advertising ability 1. The system even told me my beginner advertising ability would automatically attract followers. Not bad at all. I published the article at 11 and went to sleep feeling good. The next week started with the same boring classes. Everything was too easy now. At lunch, I headed straight to the library as usual, but today I was looking for business books instead of academic ones. The selection was disappointingly small. The only useful one I found was Restaurant Management Fundamentals, and it was in English with no translation. Ding. English 1. Restaurant Management 1. The librarian, Zhu Ziki, had been getting more and more curious about me. She'd expected my library visits to be a passing phase, but I showed up every single day without fail. Today she decided to find out what I was actually reading. She snuck up behind me and caught me flipping pages at an insane speed. Before I noticed her, she grabbed my ear. "What are you doing reading restaurant management books instead of proper schoolwork? And in English? Can you even understand this? And who reads that fast?" She was genuinely annoyed. My ear hurt. Without thinking, I reached over and grabbed her ear right back. It was surprisingly soft and smooth. She froze for 2 seconds. Then, HHHHH, her scream echoed through half the library. I instantly let go, but the damage was done. She was furious and embarrassed, pointing at me, unable to form words. "I treated you like a little brother, and you." "Humph." She stomped off to her reception desk and buried herself in her own books, refusing to look at me. I knew I'd gone too far and followed her to apologize. While trying to make peace, I noticed she was stuck on a math problem, not a regular one, but a university-level calculus question. She was studying for her college upgrade exam, and this problem had stumped her for days. She'd asked math teachers at the school, and none could solve it. She'd searched the entire library with no luck. I asked the system to scan the problem. Proficient math ability activated. Success probability, 70%. Solve? Yes. Solution complete. Ziki was sitting there fuming. Angry at the math problem, angry at me. When I said casually, "Try using the Lagrange mean value theorem," Ziki couldn't believe the voice came from me. I didn't bother explaining. I just grabbed her calculus book and started writing. She tried to snatch it back, but froze when she saw me scribbling out a complete solution to the problem that had stumped her for days. "So that's how this step works," she muttered, watching over my shoulder. 3 minutes later, I handed the book back. She stared at me in shock. "How did you? You're a first-year high school student." She tested me with several more problems. I solved them all without breaking a sweat. Then she switched from amazed to scheming. She said she'd forgive the ear incident, on one condition. I had to tutor her in calculus every day. When I hesitated, she smiled sweetly and threatened to post a notice outside the library. Year 1 Class 18 student Yihong publicly harassed the librarian. I had no choice. For the next hour, she clung to me, bombarding me with calculus questions. When the bell rang and I left, she chased me to the door shouting, "Don't forget to come tomorrow." Every passing student and teacher turned to stare. She blushed and ducked back inside. Ding. Teaching Ability 1. The afternoon's first class was information technology, basically computer class. I'd always liked computers. As a kid, I'd even written, "I want to be a computer engineer," on a piece of paper. Chubby Zhou had saved me a seat. Saved it for you. You're the star of my manga. After all, the teacher, Mr. Zhao Lin, was actually decent. He taught programming basics in the first half and let us practice in the second half. I listened carefully for once and took real notes. Ding. Computer ability upgraded to proficient. Progress, 11/100. Knowledge flooded my brain. Programming concepts that had seemed confusing moments ago suddenly made perfect sense. When Mr. Zhao told us to write a simple program, everyone opened their computers and started struggling. The school had top-of-the-line equipment. These machines booted in seconds, which made me even more determined to replace our dinosaur at home. Zhou next to me had daydreamed through the entire lecture and was now staring blankly at an English-only software menu. Meanwhile, my fingers were already dancing across the keyboard. I finished Mr. Zhao's assignment in minutes, then kept going. I started building a small video game from scratch. My classmates gathered behind me one by one, mouths hanging open, watching code turn into an actual working program. They were still trying to figure out step 1. When I hit, run, and a little character started bouncing across the screen with cheerful music, the whole group erupted in cheers. They were more excited than I was, like they'd just witnessed a rocket launch. Zhou wrapped himself around my leg and looked up at me with puppy eyes. "Master, please take me as your student," after Zhou wiped his nose on my school pants. "Thanks for that." I patiently helped him finish his assignment. Other classmates gathered around with notebooks, and they said my explanations were actually easier to understand than the teacher's. Ding. Group teaching. Teaching Ability 1. Mr. Zhao noticed the crowd from the front and was about to come investigate when he tripped over a cable. His computer let out an ugly beep, blue-screened, then went completely black. He couldn't turn it back on no matter what he tried. The class cheered, hoping for an early dismissal. But I felt partly responsible since I'd caused the distraction, so I walked up and offered to help. Mr. Zhao gave me a condescending look. This machine was imported from overseas. I've been a professional for over 10 years, and I'm not sure I can fix it. Go sit down. How will you know if you don't let me try? I said calmly. He huffed and stepped aside, ready to watch me fail. I scanned the computer with my system. 1 fault detected. Repair success rate, 95%. Solution sent. I asked for a screwdriver, popped the case open, found the problem among the tangled wires, fixed it, and closed everything back up. Under a minute. Done, Mr. Zhao stared at me like I was insane. He pressed the power button, and the familiar startup chime played. The desktop appeared. His jaw dropped. The class erupted. Zhou was practically doing a victory dance. "I told you my master could fix it, Mr. Zhao's attitude toward me completely flipped. He started calling me the respectful you. I handed back his screwdriver and told him to please continue the lesson. My classmate's dream of leaving early was crushed. In the corner, girls teased Shu away about her little boyfriend, getting more impressive every day. She turned red and insisted we weren't like that. After class, Mr. Zhao pulled me aside with a troubled expression. He owned a computer repair shop outside school, and a customer had brought in the exact same model of computer. The catch? The owner refused to let anyone turn it on. If there were any boot-up traces, he wouldn't pay. Mr. Zhao had been stuck on it for days. I had nothing better to do after school, so I agreed to take a look. His shop was on a nearby street, small but well-stocked with parts. His apprentice, a young guy named Xiao Wang with a face full of acne, was sitting behind the counter looking miserable, poking at the mystery computer. Mr. Zhao pointed at the machine and sighed. "That's the one. The owner is ridiculous. Fix it without turning it on, or no payment." How is that even fair? Fix a computer without turning it on. That was a first for me too. Mr. Zhao's apprentice Xiao Wang immediately protested. He didn't trust some student touching an important job. He sneered that I looked too baby-faced to be reliable. I grabbed his shoulder and casually lifted him out of the way with my enhanced arm strength. That shut him up, mostly. I scanned the computer with my system. 3 faults detected, but only 70% success rate without booting it up. Not good enough. I asked the system what I needed, 20 more points in computer ability. Mr. Zhao, do you have any computer books? He looked confused but brought out a huge stack from the back room. I sat down and started speed flipping through them one by one while he and Xiao Wang watched in bewilderment. Ding. Computer ability 1. 1. 1. Xiao Wang whispered to Mr. Xiao that I might be mentally unstable. I heard him with my enhanced hearing but didn't bother responding. 20 minutes and 5 books later, I hit 35 points. The system confirmed 100% success rate. Solution ready. Mr. Zhao, I need a second computer. Xiao Wang mocked me again, assuming I was going to search the internet. I looked at him coldly. I was talking to Mr. Zhao. Mind your own business. Ding. Trash talk ability 1. Mr. Zhao told Xiao Wang to get me a computer and stop arguing. Here was my plan. I connected the working computer to the broken one with cables and remotely accessed it. That way the broken machine never needed to boot up. Mr. Zhao figured it out instantly and was amazed he hadn't thought of it himself. Then came the real show. Dozens of program windows popped open on my screen simultaneously. I worked across all of them at blinding speed, typing code, switching between windows, my hands moving so fast they became blurs. Mr. Zhao and Xiao Wang stood frozen, watching what looked like a scene from a sci-fi movie. Ding. Computer ability 1. Hand dexterity 1. Minutes later, all the windows vanished. A clean desktop appeared, but it wasn't this computer's desktop. It was the broken computer's. I'd successfully connected to it, repaired all 3 faults, and brought it back to life without ever pressing its power button. Mr. Zhao bear hugged me. Xiao Wang stood there stunned, then lowered his head and called me Mr. Yi, using the formal, respectful title. Coming from a guy who'd been trash-talking me 5 minutes ago, that meant he was genuinely humbled. I told him to forget about it. Then I noticed something on the repaired computer's desktop, several password-locked folders. I suddenly understood why the owner didn't want anyone turning the machine on. He was hiding something. My imagination immediately went somewhere inappropriate. A voice in my head said, "This is wrong," but curiosity won. System, if I open these folders, will the owner know? No. Your current connection method leaves no trace. Good enough for me. I cracked the password in 5 seconds and opened the first folder. Mr. Zhao gasped. "Yihong, you shouldn't." But he and Xiao Wang were already staring at the screen. All 3 of us sucked in a sharp breath at what we saw. What we found in those folders wasn't what I expected. It was far more serious. The images showed detailed photographs of every angle of Anming County's massive trade zone in the east, a major economic hub for the entire province. Each photo was labeled with things like West Corridor 3, negotiating, and East Corridor 2, transaction complete. Trade zone layouts are classified information that should never be public. The labels suggested someone was selling these photos. That meant the computer's owner was likely a foreign economic spy. All 3 of us could barely breathe. Mr. Zhao and Xiao Wang recalled the customer. He'd worn a cap and sunglasses, was completely covered up, and had a strange accent that didn't sound local. The more they thought about it, the creepier it got. They looked at me for guidance, which was funny. I'm the teenager here. But I remembered I had a contact. I dug through the business cards in my pocket and found the one from Officer Liu, the young policeman who'd driven me home after the kidnapping incident. I called him. He got excited, thinking I had leads on the kidnapper's criminal network. Before I could explain, he transferred me to trainee Song Lingling, who started joking around. I cut her off. "This is urgent. Get me Captain Duan. Now." She heard the seriousness in my voice and called him back from a case in the countryside. Half an hour later, Officer Duan and Lingling arrived at the shop. I showed them the photos without a word. Their faces went dark instantly. Lingling slammed the table in anger. Duan looked more serious than I'd ever seen him. He thanked us formally. If these photos kept circulating, the consequences for the county's economy could be devastating. Mr. Zhao and Xiao Wang gave me all the credit, explaining everything I'd done. Duan and Lingling were stunned that I could do all this with computers too. Lingling circled me like I was some lab specimen, muttering, "Are you even human? How can someone be this good at everything?" Duan saluted me again. "Yihong, you've done this county another enormous service," He said he'd report this to higher authorities who'd want to meet me. Within days, a massive counter-espionage operation erupted across Aming County and the surrounding region. It made national waves. Almost nobody knew it all started because a high school kid got curious about some locked folders. But that wasn't my concern anymore. When I got back to our street that evening, something was very wrong. Our restaurant was nearly empty, just one customer, and it happened to be Brother Biao. No line, no crowd. A complete contrast to the weekend madness. Meanwhile, across the street, Xiaoma's pastry shop was doing suspiciously great business. When Xiaoma caught me looking, he flashed me a dark, nasty smile. Something was definitely off. When I got home, our shop was practically dead. My parents looked miserable. They said customers had been avoiding our place all day, running across the street to Xiaoma's pastry shop instead. It made no sense. Even though my parents' version of the red bean cake wasn't as good as mine, it was still excellent. I grabbed a piece from Brother Biao's plate and tasted it. Nothing wrong. He agreed the flavor was fine, but admitted something was definitely off about the lack of customers. I asked if he could help me find out what was going on. He held up 3 fingers. 3 bowls of my noodles, his price for information. Fair enough. That night, I checked our new social media account. The follower count had been growing steadily until yesterday afternoon, when suddenly a massive wave of people unfollowed. Something had happened. The next day, I could barely focus at school. After class, I rushed home. Brother Biao's man, Lei Zi, was waiting with a stack of papers. What he showed me made my blood boil. Someone had posted an anonymous article on the county's biggest online forum. The title was devastating. The famous Yes snack shop has been adding addictive poppy shells to their beef noodles. The post claimed that our shop had been putting illegal, addictive substances in the supreme beef noodles, and that we'd switched to selling pastries because we were afraid of getting caught. On top of that, the post said we'd stolen our cake recipe from Xiaoma's pastry shop across the street. It ended with a call to boycott our restaurant. The comments section was a nightmare. People were panicking about having eaten our food, cursing us as criminals, sharing the post everywhere, and sending sympathy customers to Xiaoma's shop. I didn't need evidence to know who was behind this. The timing lined up perfectly with when our followers started dropping. Lazy confirmed that the troublemaker with the baseball cap from the weekend had also been hired by Xiaoma. My dad was shaking with rage, ready to storm across the street. I stopped him. Going over there without proof will only make things worse. Lazy offered to smash up Xiaoma's shop. I gave him a look. You want me to end up in jail? I told everyone to calm down and leave this to me. If Xiaoma wanted to destroy us, I'd show him what happens when you mess with Yihong. Ding. Strategic planning 1. Tactical layout 1. A flood of counter-strategies poured into my brain, each one devastating enough to ruin Xiaoma completely. The cold intensity in my eyes made Lei Zi's hair stand on end. He later admitted that in all his years working for Brother Biao, he'd never felt the kind of terrifying pressure he sensed from me in that moment. He silently promised himself to never, ever make me angry. The next few days were brutal. Our shop's business was dead thanks to that forum post. My parents wanted to close temporarily, but I stopped them. Shutting down would only make us look guilty. The abuse on our social media account was horrifying. People left comments like, "Shut down your poisonous shop," and "Get out of Aming County." I didn't tell my parents about those. Meanwhile, Xiaoma's pastry shop across the street was booming. He became the neighborhood hero, and his father, Old Ma, bragged about him to everyone. Our family had become the cautionary tale parents used to lecture their kids. The neighbors who used to be friendly with us now avoided our shop like we had a plague. Humans are fickle creatures. One night, Xiaoma showed up at our door reeking of alcohol, taunting us. "Where are all your customers?" Oh right, he pretended to be innocent, saying our troubles were our own fault for using poppy shells. My dad snapped. He leaped off the front step and punched Xiaoma square in the nose. Blood everywhere, nose bent sideways. Honestly, Dad's always been the strongest guy on this street. Old Ma rushed out screaming, and the neighbors swarmed around, all taking Xiaoma's side. Uncle Guo, the beef vendor, lectured us about business integrity. Others piled on, accusing us of jealousy, of being dishonest, of deserving everything we got. My dad stood there helpless. He's honest and straightforward. Arguing with a mob isn't his strength. I flew downstairs and put myself between Dad and the crowd. I looked at every single one of them, burning their faces into my memory. Ding. Mass intimidation. Aura 1. The whole street went silent. Nobody could speak under the weight of my stare. I said in a voice that carried to every corner, "Our shop has never used poppy shells. We don't need to. Unlike certain shops that have zero real talent and can only throw mud at others." I glanced down at Xiaoma. His smirk vanished and his eyes shifted nervously. "Remember your faces today," I told the crowd coldly. "When the truth comes out, don't complain that it stings." I brought my parents inside and slammed the door shut. After we left, I could hear the neighbors muttering, calling us stubborn, predicting our downfall. Let them talk. When Saturday finally arrived, I had time to put my counterattack into motion. Early that morning, I left home alone and took the #1 bus to Tongyu Mountain on the north side of town. To clear our shop's name, I needed someone with real influence to vouch for us. Kai Jianan was the obvious choice. I'd called him days ago, and he told me to visit him at Tongyu Mountain, an entire mountain he'd bought years ago as his private estate. Saturday morning, I took the bus and walked half a mile to the mountain entrance. A winding stone staircase disappeared into the fog above. At the bottom, security guards in black suits blocked my path. "Private property. Get lost, kid." I told them I had an appointment with Mr. Kai. The guard looked at my cheap clothes and laughed. "You? Meet Mr. Kai? I see your type every day. Get out before I beat you so bad your own mother won't recognize you." I was about to consider forcing my way through when a red Audi pulled up behind me. Out stepped Secretary Jiang, Kai Jianan's ice-cold, gorgeous assistant. The guard instantly transformed into a groveling mess. "Good morning, Secretary Jiang. You look beautiful as always." She ignored him completely and walked straight to me. "Mr. Yi, why haven't you gone up yet?" "Mr. Kai has been waiting for days." The guard's face went white. I shrugged and pointed at him. "This gentleman said I don't have the qualifications to see Mr. Kai." He also threatened to rearrange my face. Secretary Jiang's eyes turned to ice. "This man is Mr. Kai's benefactor and our most honored guest. If he doesn't qualify, do you?" The guard's legs gave out. She fired him on the spot, told him to collect his paycheck and leave. As we walked away, I heard the slap of him hitting his own face. Secretary Jiang didn't take me up the stone stairs. Instead, she led me to a hidden steel door built into the mountainside, secured with fingerprint scanners and guarded by two massive, serious-looking men. Nothing like that mouthy guard downstairs. Through the door was a long corridor, then another secured door, which opened into a hidden valley with cable cars. Steel cables stretched all the way to the summit. "The stairs are for visitors," she explained. "Mr. Kai spent a few 100,000 yuan building these cable cars, so he doesn't waste time climbing. Rich people really do live in a different world." As we rode up, the view through the glass was breathtaking. The entire county spread out below us. I silently promised myself that someday I'd live somewhere people could only look up to. Ding. Overlooking the world. Vision and ambition won. I noticed Secretary Jiang studying me with a strange expression, as if she suddenly saw something in me that reminded her of her boss. Then she quickly looked away when I caught her staring. Ding. Caught a beauty's attention. Aura 1. Flirting skill 1. The cable car reached the top and stopped inside a quiet building. When we stepped out, two more muscular guards approached us carrying some kind of scanning devices. "Just checking for prohibited items, don't worry," Secretary Jiang explained as guards scanned us with red light devices. I had nothing on me except a bag of supreme osmanthus red bean cake I'd brought as a gift. Past the checkpoint, a pebble path led around a bend, and I nearly lost my breath. Before me stood a massive traditional Chinese villa, red brick, white tiles, golden roof. At least 400 square meters. The rumors about Kai Jianan's home were true. A tiny figure came rocketing out of the reception hall and launched herself at me. "Sienna, you finally came. I missed you so much," she snuggled into my arms happily. Old Mr. Kai hobbled behind her with his cane, chuckling. "If you'd taken any longer, this little devil would have pulled out all my remaining whiskers." I apologized for the delay and explained the situation at our shop. Mr. Kai smiled warmly. "Your character, others might doubt it, but the Kai family never will. Jianan will handle everything for you. If he doesn't, I'll whack him with my cane." Sienna pouted and complained that her stinky daddy and stinky grandpa wouldn't let her leave the mountain. Turns out the police had warned the family that the kidnappers I'd caught were connected to a larger criminal network, so Sienna was basically under house arrest until the case was solved. That explained why Kai Jianan wanted me to come here instead. Secretary Jiang said Mr. Kai was returning from a meeting in the next county and would arrive soon, then excused herself to handle work. I sat in the elegant reception hall, all antique hardwood furniture and traditional paper lanterns, sharing tea and cake with the old man and Siener. Then the housekeeper announced 2 unexpected visitors. Before Mr. Kai could react, a booming voice thundered from outside. "Kai Hung, you old bastard. Are you dead yet? Get out here before I freeze to death." Mr. Kai's face darkened, but I caught a trace of hidden amusement. He explained it was an old military comrade named Fu Huayong whom he hadn't seen in years. The man spends his retirement obsessing over math books. No idea if he's actually discovered anything. A tall, imposing old man strode in wearing a green military coat, eyes sharp and full of energy despite his white hair. Beside him stood a handsome boy of 5 or 6 with an arrogant look that seemed too mature for his age. The boy scanned the room, and his gaze lingered on Siener for a moment. Fu Huayong glanced at me dismissively. When Mr. Kai tried to introduce me, Fu waved his hand. "Don't bother. A nobody like this. I'll forget his name before I leave." He said it like he was commenting on the weather. My eyes turned cold. I'd never met someone this arrogant. Mr. Kai grinned mischievously. "Old Fu, I think you might be misjudging this one. Ahong isn't your average young person." Fu Huayong looked me up and down, my ordinary face, my cheap second-hand clothes, and clearly saw nothing special. I could practically hear his thoughts. Kai Hing has really lowered his standards. He shook his head and turned back to Mr. Kai. "I didn't come here to chat. I came to show you something special." "Something special, Mr.?" Kai raised an eyebrow. Fu Huayong called over his grandson, a boy named Fu Xian. The kid bowed politely to Mr. Kai and introduced himself with perfect manners, but his eyes were full of pride. Fu Huayong explained the deal. Years ago, he and Mr. Kai used to compete over everything: military achievements, chess skills, even whose wife cooked better. When they had kids, the competition shifted to their children. But Kai Jianan was so exceptional that he crushed all of Fu's sons combined. Humiliated, Fu Huayong had stayed away for years. Now he was back, with his grandson as his secret weapon. "Let's compare grandchildren," he declared. Fu Xian began listing his achievements in a clear, proud voice. Memorized 1,000 digits of pi at age 3, won the National Youth Math Championship at 4, earned a gold medal at an American math competition at 5, and more. Even I was impressed. This kid was a genuine math prodigy. But with my proficient-level math ability, his accomplishments didn't intimidate me. I just smiled calmly and listened. Fu Huayong noticed my composure, but assumed I was simply too ignorant to understand how impressive these competitions were. What I noticed, though, was that Fu Xian kept sneaking glances at Siener the whole time he was showing off. When he finished, he turned to Siener nervously. "Pretty impressive, right?" Siener lifted her chin like a proud little swan. "Childish." Then she buried herself back in my arms without another look. Fu Xian went pale. He'd never been dismissed like that. Seeing Siener cuddled up with me, jealousy flared in his eyes. Boys and girls shouldn't be so close. Let go of her. That's when a wonderfully evil idea popped into my head. I shook my head at Fu Xian and said, "My master Siener is absolutely right. Your achievements are laughable in her eyes, master." Everyone froze. Even Siener looked up at me, confused. I winked at her. The clever little girl caught on instantly and announced loudly, "That's right. He's my student, and he speaks for me." Fu Xian was furious. "Even if you're her student, what right do you have to call me childish?" I smiled coldly. "You think you're a math genius? Your skills wouldn't match one of my master's fingers. No wonder she thinks you're childish." "Right, master." Siener nodded enthusiastically, fully committed to the act. Poor Mr. Kai was sweating. He knew perfectly well his granddaughter was a normal little girl. If Fu Huayong called the bluff, the embarrassment would be catastrophic. Fu Huayong sneered and challenged Siener to list her achievements. Mr. Kai started panicking. Before things fell apart, I stepped in again. Why would my master waste her time on someone at Fu Xian's level? Even I find his math unimpressive. He doesn't deserve her attention. Fu Huayong's eyes turned icy. Suddenly, a wave of crushing pressure rolled off him. The terrifying aura of a man who'd survived real battlefields. My breath caught for a moment. Ding. Aura suppression detected. Aura 1. Upgraded to proficient level. Auto-neutralizing pressure. Just like that, the suffocating feeling vanished. I smiled back at him, completely relaxed. Fu Huayong's pupils contracted. He studied me again, this time with genuine surprise. He'd intimidated military generals with that stare, yet this teenager in cheap clothes didn't even flinch. Fu Xin, unable to contain himself any longer, jumped forward and pointed at me. Yihong, I challenge you to a math competition. Fu Xin had been trained in math by his grandfather since birth, winning competition after competition. Being humiliated by me was something he couldn't stand. What do you want to compete in? I asked innocently. Fu Huayong jumped in. Mental arithmetic. He was supremely confident. Apparently, even university professors praised Fu Xion's calculation abilities. Now here's where I started having fun. I put on a nervous face, stammering. Mental math? I guess that's okay. Fu Huayong caught my anxiety and smiled. He thought he had me figured out. Before the rules were set, I interrupted. Wait. If I win, you have to promise to do one thing for me. Deal? Fu Huayong almost refused. His word carried enormous weight in military circles. But when he saw my panicked expression, he thought I was bluffing and took the bait. Deal. But if you lose, you strip naked and run down this mountain. I hesitated. Perfectly on cue. Then gritted my teeth. Fine. I trust what my master taught me. Ding. Deception. Acting ability 1. Hook, line, and sinker. The rules were fair. Mr. Kai and Fu Huayong each wrote groups of huge numbers, then mixed them into 10 insanely complex calculation problems. First to solve, all 10 wins. Mr. Kai was silently panicking the entire time. If I lost and had to streak down the mountain, the Kai family's reputation would be ruined too. The timer started. Fu Xin buried his head and started blazing through problems. Within seconds, he'd solved the first one. These were massive equations with numbers over 10 digits long. The kid really was a prodigy. He glanced at me smugly and kept going. Me? I hadn't even picked up my pen. I sat there with my eyes closed. Yihong, hurry up, mister. Kai was practically dying. Fu Huayong smirked. Pretending to be deep, he'd already mentally declared victory. His grandson was on problem 9 out of 10. Then I coughed, stretched, and yawned. Sorry about that. These problems were so boring I accidentally fell asleep. Dead silence. Even Fu Xion's concentration broke for a second. Fu Huayong laughed confidently. My grandson is almost finished. Even if you were a human calculator, you can't catch up now. Siener's little face crumpled with worry. Big brother, you can do it. I flashed her in. Okay, sign. Then finally picked up my pen. My lazy expression vanished. My eyes sharpened. Ding. Proficient math ability activated. Scanning all problems. Complete. All answers delivered. My pen became a blur. 1 second. 1 problem solved. 2 seconds. 3 more done. 5 seconds later, I put down my pen. All 10 answers, written perfectly. I'm done. Fu Xin was just about to write his final answer. He froze, staring at me in disbelief. Fu Huayong exploded. He snatched my paper and screamed, "You must be writing random numbers. Kai Hung, get me a calculator." I'm checking every single one. A calculator was brought over. Fu Huayong started checking my answers one by one, and with each correct result, his face sank further. His hands were shaking. Before he could finish, little Fu Xin placed his hand on his grandfather's and said quietly, "Grandpa, you don't need to keep checking." The boy had already verified with his own mental math that all 10 of my answers were correct. Fu Xin walked up to me with a serious expression. "You're better than me at mental math. You win. But I'll work hard and beat you next time." I actually started to respect this kid. He was gracious in defeat, which showed real character. Then he ruined it. "And I will take Siener back from you." Siener ignored him completely, threw herself into my arms, and cheered. Mr. Kai exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath underwater. He'd finally figured out that my nervousness had all been an act. I'd tricked Fu Huayong into making that bet from the very beginning. Fu Huayong looked like he'd swallowed something rotten. He grumbled that mental math was just one area, and his grandson would beat me in any other branch of mathematics. Nobody was convinced. Mr. Kai laughed heartily and shoved a piece of my red bean cake into the old man's hand to calm him down. Fu Huayong bit into it furiously, then froze. "What is this?" He chewed slowly, his angry expression melting away. He ate one piece, then another, then another. When Fu Xian innocently pointed out that Grandpa had already eaten 5 pieces despite his heart condition, Mr. Kai burst out laughing. Red-faced, Fu Huayong tried to play it cool. It's all right, I suppose. Where'd you buy it? Some famous bakery. Mr. Kai shook his head. Not from any bakery. The capital, another head shake. Don't tell me it's from a state banquet. Even state banquets probably don't have this. Fu Huayong was losing his mind. Just tell me which master chef made this, Mr. Kai smiled mysteriously. You said only 10 chefs in the entire province could make something this good. Well, one of them might be sitting right in front of you. Fu Huayong blinked, not understanding. I scratched my head awkwardly. It's called the Supreme Osmanthus Red Bean Cake. And well, I made it. His expression locked up. He looked down at the half-eaten cake in his hand, unsure whether to put it down or keep eating. He slowly turned to Mr. Kai for confirmation. Mr. Kai nodded. The master chef you're looking for has been right here the whole time. Fu Huayong stared at me for a long, silent moment. All the contempt and dismissal had vanished from his eyes. What replaced it was genuine curiosity, and maybe a hint of respect. Who exactly are you? Who exactly are you? When Fu Huayong asked that question, I knew I'd earned his respect. In all of Aming County, the number of young people he takes seriously can be counted on one hand. I couldn't resist throwing his earlier words back at him. Just a nobody. The kind whose name you'd forget the moment you heard it. His face went stiff. For a second I thought he might explode. But then he threw his head back and roared with laughter. You've got guts, kid. Every young person I meet these days is too scared to breathe around me. You're the first one in years to actually make me feel defeated. He devoured another piece of cake. Delicious. And then honored the bet. I always keep my word. Tell me what you want. Just nothing illegal or immoral. I told him I hadn't decided yet. He called me a crafty little fox and gave me a 1-year deadline to cash in his promise. I was thrilled. A promise from someone like him is priceless. The tension broke, and we all chatted happily. Fu Xian and his grandfather pulled me into a deep math discussion. I barely showed a fraction of what the system had given me, and they listened like school children, completely mesmerized. When Kai Jianan finally arrived around noon, he treated the Fu family to a lavish lunch. Every dish on the table bumped my cooking ability up a few more points. After the fuss left, Kai Jianan and I retreated to his elegant study upstairs. He offered me tea, and not just any tea. The system went crazy. Tea Appreciation 5. It was a supreme Da Hong Pao, harvested from the only surviving mother tree. This tea was beyond money. That he served it to me showed how much he valued our relationship. I identified it in one sip. He laughed. Nothing gets past you. Then his mood turned somber. He told me about Siener's mother passing away young, and how his obsession with business had left the girl growing up essentially alone in this huge villa, with only her grandfather and the housekeeper for company. Fu Xian was probably the only child her age she'd ever met. My heart ached thinking about it. All the wealth in the world doesn't guarantee happiness. Come visit her often, he said. I nodded sincerely. Then we got down to business. I laid out everything about the smear campaign against our shop. He waved dismissively. Easy. I'll have the forum moderator delete the post. He wouldn't dare refuse me. No, I said. That would let certain people off too easily. He noticed the ruthless glint in my eye and smiled approvingly. In business, soft people fall first. So what's your plan? I told him everything. Every detail of my counterattack strategy. We refined the plan together until dinner, then looked at each other and smiled. Before I left, he mentioned that the shop on East Street was nearly ready for us to move in. I looked out the window in silence. The baby eagle was about to leave the nest. A much bigger stage was waiting for me. That Sunday, our counterattack hit the local forum like an earthquake. An account called Village Teacher Kai posted a video. At first nobody noticed it. Then one person clicked and commented, "Holy crap, come look at this." The video showed Kai Jianan, the most powerful businessman in the county, holding a piece of our red bean cake. He praised our food as the most delicious, healthy, and trustworthy he'd ever had. Then his tone turned sharp. Hearing that this shop has been falsely accused of adding poppy shells makes me deeply angry. I personally guarantee that Yes Snack Shop would never add such substances. Don't let people with ulterior motives mislead you. He emphasized ulterior motives in a way that left zero doubt about who he meant. The video exploded. Comments flooded in. People worshipping Kai Jianan, apologizing for believing the lies, mocking whoever had made the original accusation. Meanwhile, in a cafe across town, the forum's head moderator Yufeng and his deputy Xia He were having coffee, congratulating themselves on how much traffic Xiao Ma's smear post had generated. They'd taken Xiao Ma's money to boost it, and business was good. Then both their phones started blowing up simultaneously. Their staff was screaming, "Check the forum now." They watched the video and nearly fainted. Kai Jiannan, the man who could shake the county's entire economy with one phone call, was personally defending the shop they'd helped destroy. If their backroom deal with Xiao Ma was exposed, they wouldn't just lose their moderator positions. They'd be finished. Yufeng called Secretary Jiang with shaking hands. Whatever she said turned his face white. He hung up and whispered to Xiaohe. She said, "Mr. Kai is very angry. We need to figure this out ourselves." Xiaohe collapsed to the floor. Yufeng quickly pinned Kai Jiannan's video to the top of the forum. Their only hope was to make peace with our shop directly. If we forgave them, maybe Kai Jiannan would back off. But the forum was already in full revolt. The original smear post was flooded with furious replies. The poster is a shameless liar. Obviously someone was jealous of Ye's success. Come out and face us, coward. People started posting analysis threads, logically connecting the smear campaign to Xiao Ma's pastry shop across the street. Then came the real bomb. A local street punk posted a confession. He admitted that Xiao Ma had paid him to plant a fly in our food to sabotage our business. It was the same baseball cap guy from before. The forum went absolutely nuclear. The confession from the street punk was Brother Biao's doing. The moment the guy heard Biao's name, he immediately posted everything online. How Xiao Ma had paid him to plant a fly in our food. When all the evidence pointed to a deliberate setup, the internet exploded with rage. Not just at Xiao Ma, but at themselves for being manipulated. Thousands of angry posts flooded the forum every second, nearly crashing the site. Boycott Xiao Ma. We demand justice for Ye's snack shop. In real life, mobs of furious people surrounded Xiao Ma's pastry shop. He'd locked himself inside, too scared to come out. People hurled rotten eggs, old vegetables, and crushed cans at his door until it looked like a modern art disaster. His shop was finished, permanently. The other shop owners on our street stood watching with complicated expressions. I'm sure they all remembered what I told them. Remember your faces today. When the truth comes out, don't complain that it stings. Their faces were stinging plenty now. But instead of owning their shame, they blamed everything on Xiao Ma and joined the mob throwing things at his shop. Typical. That evening, our restaurant was packed. Nearly every neighbor came to apologize, heads bowed. But most eyes were really on the figure sitting quietly in the corner, Kai Jiannan, in a blue suit, calmly eating a bowl of noodles as if nothing in the world concerned him. Uncle Guo led the apology parade, nervously asking us to forgive and forget. Some had the nerve to ask if Kai Jiannan could advertise for their shops too. My mom had other plans. She unleashed half an hour of nonstop scolding without repeating a single insult. Honestly, more impressive than anything my system had given me. Nobody dared talk back, not with my cold stare and Kai Jiannan's silent presence backing her up. She'd been holding in weeks of humiliation, and she let every drop of it out. Then two uninvited guests walked in. Yufeng and Xiaohe, the forum moderators. They were dressed up and carrying gift boxes. They spotted Kai Jiannan immediately and decided I was just some irrelevant kid. Xiaohe actually shoved my mom aside to get to Kai Jiannan faster. I caught her before she fell. My dad nearly charged at them, but I held him back. The two men bowed and scraped before Kai Jiannan, apologizing for the misunderstanding on their forum. He didn't even look at them. He wiped his hands with a napkin, checked his watch, then turned to me. It's 7:30. Say the word, and I can make them disappear from Aming County before 8. The entire room went silent. Everyone stared in shock. Kai Jiannan wasn't giving me orders. He was asking me, as an equal, what I wanted to do. The most powerful man in the county was deferring to a teenager. Yufeng and Xiaohe finally understood. They'd ignored me completely when they walked in, but I was the one who held their fate. And Xiaohe had just shoved my mother. The color drained from his face. He threw himself on the ground in front of my mom, bowing frantically. I looked at him with pure disgust. Get out. Ding. Proficient level aura activated. Mental pressure engaged. Xiaohe's eyes went blank. He later told someone it felt like a 1,000-pound hammer hit the inside of his skull, and I'd grown to the size of a giant who could crush him. Underfoot. He started physically shaking. Why yes, I'll go, right now. And he actually curled up and rolled across the floor toward the exit, too terrified to even stand up. The crowd watching he literally roll across the floor burst into laughter. Meanwhile, Yufeng came to me with an expensive gift box, begging for forgiveness. I didn't even look at it. As far as I was concerned, if Xiaoma was the killer, these two forum moderators were the ones who handed him the knife. I hated them just as much. Then a voice screamed from outside. Wai Hong. The crowd parted. Xiaoma stumbled in, hair wild, eyes bloodshot. He fell to his knees and begged me to stop. His shop had been destroyed by angry mobs. His father, Old Ma, had suffered a heart attack from the stress and was in the hospital. I looked down at him coldly. I never sent anyone to smash your shop. Those people came on their own because they couldn't stand what you did. And your father's heart attack? That wasn't caused by me. It was caused by his disgraceful son. You brought every bit of this on yourself. My words hit him like a thunderbolt. He slumped to the ground, his face blank. I could see the regret finally hitting him. If he'd never tried to destroy us, maybe both families could have prospered side by side. But there's no medicine for regret. I turned away, done with him. But then Xia, who'd been cowering in the corner, suddenly rushed forward and punched Xiao Ma in the face, knocking out a tooth. This is your fault. If I hadn't taken your business, I'd never have angered Mr. Kai. Xiao Ma punched back. The two of them rolled on the ground, beating each other senseless. Yufeng tried to break them up and got dragged into the brawl too. 3 grown men fighting on the floor of our restaurant like dogs. I watched without any emotion. The crowd, however, was having the time of their lives. Phones came out everywhere. Within minutes, videos titled, "The Moderators and the Pastry Shop Owner, Secret Deal Exposed," were all over the forum. Then a sharp voice cut through the chaos. Everyone stop. A police car had pulled up outside. Out stepped Officer Song Lingling, looking fierce and professional. She marched in with several officers, flashed her badge, and announced, "I'm Song Lingling from the Anming County Police Bureau. You 3 are suspected of criminal defamation. You're coming with us." The crowd gasped. The county police bureau itself, not just the local precinct. This was serious. Of course, I was the one who'd called Lingling. Seeing her act all stern and serious when she was usually so playful almost made me laugh. I winked at her, but she kept her ice-cold expression and didn't react at all. Typical. The 3 men on the ground collapsed completely. They knew exactly what they'd done. Their psychological defenses were shattered. "Take them away," Lingling ordered. As the officers loaded them into the car, she shot me one quick glare before leaving, her way of saying I owed her one. I smiled to myself. After the 3 of them were arrested, the whole mess was finally over. Our shop's name was cleared, and everyone who tried to hurt us got what they deserved. Before leaving, Kai Jiannan handed me a set of keys. "The East Street shop is ready. Move in whenever you want." My parents could barely contain their excitement, whispering about future plans. He offered to throw us a grand opening party and invite half the county's business elite, but I turned him down. I didn't want our shop to carry the Kai Group's stamp. I wanted to build our reputation on our own. He respected that, and I could tell it made him think even more highly of me. That night, lying in bed, I reflected on everything. From the moment I decided to take down Xiaoma, every single step had gone according to plan. The system wasn't just about raising numbers. It was teaching me that if I kept getting stronger, I could control my own destiny. Ding. Perfect strategy. Planning ability 1. My dad burst in, panicking that his phone was buzzing nonstop. Turns out our social media account was exploding, 5,000 followers and climbing fast. The comments were flooding in, apologies from people who'd cursed us, requests to try our food, even people hoping to meet Kai Jiannan through us. All the drama had made Yes Food a household name across the county. I decided it was time to set up an online ordering system through our account. Once approved, customers could buy directly through their phones. Ding. Social media management 1. Restaurant management 1. Our family agreed to officially move to the East Street location next Saturday. That Monday at school, I took the usual apple from Shuawei and started wondering who could help manage the social media account. Shuawei crossed my mind, but she was a regular student with real studying to do. I couldn't burden her with that. I accidentally stared at her too long while thinking, and she got all flustered, blushing and playing with her hair. When I said, "Oh, it's nothing," she got offended and turned away with a huff. I still have no idea what I did wrong. At lunch in the library, I helped Ziki with her math as usual. Watching her look at me with those admiring eyes always felt nice. But today I had a different idea. I asked her why she was working so hard for a higher degree. She gave a noble speech about pursuing knowledge at higher institutions, then leaned in and whispered, "Actually, it's just so I can make more money later." That gave me my opening. What if I offered you a good job right now? Like what? Managing a social media account, running an online platform. Her eyes lit up immediately. I actually used to run my own account in college. I know this stuff really well. Then her face fell. But the pay for that kind of work is usually terrible. I paused for effect. I'll pay you triple the market rate. Oh, triple. That's Pret. Wait. Her eyes went wide. Triple. Wait. You're going to pay me? Ziki was shocked. A high schooler offering her a job with a salary. If it were anyone else, she'd have walked away. I told her calmly that my shop was moving to East Street and I needed someone to manage our growing online presence. East Street is the most prestigious commercial area in the county. Every woman in Anming dreams of shopping there. When Ziki heard I had a shop there, her first instinct was to call me a liar. But she'd known me long enough to know I don't bluff. "You little brat. What else are you hiding from me?" She almost grabbed my ear again, but stopped herself, blushing at the memory of what happened last time. "Are you a rich kid?" she asked. "3 generations of poor people," I said honestly. She didn't believe me. I could tell she was tempted, but torn. She kept glancing at her half-finished textbooks. That's when something new happened. Ding. Micro-expression observation. Mind-reading ability 1. The system started analyzing her facial expressions. 94% probability she was conflicted, 2% excited, and so on. With this new ability, I could read people's emotions through tiny changes in their face. I immediately understood her dilemma. She wanted the job, but didn't want to give up studying. So I offered a solution. "I'll get you a laptop. You can study here in the library and manage the account at the same time." Her head snapped up. "How did you know what I was thinking?" I just smiled. She stared back at me, then looked away, face burning red, like I'd seen straight through to her soul. She accepted the job, voice getting smaller and smaller. "If I don't do well, please don't yell at me." I held out my hand. "Welcome to Yes Food." She shook it with a grin. "Ziki reporting for duty, boss." Ding. Leadership 1. Business Management 1. I made a mental note to buy myself a phone and computer, plus a laptop for Ziki. The week flew by. On Friday, just as I was planning our grand opening for Saturday, Mr. Yang dropped a bombshell. The county math competition had been moved up to Saturday morning at 9. He was staring right at me. After Qin Long lost his spot, I was the only competitor from our class. Looking at the old man's pleading eyes, I couldn't say no. The shop move would have to wait until Sunday. My classmates wanted to strangle me for looking so unenthusiastic about a competition they'd kill to enter. In a corner I didn't notice, Qin Long's eyes flickered with a mix of resentment and satisfaction. "We're not done, Yi Hong," he muttered. "Tomorrow you'll learn what frustration feels like." That night, my parents sent me to my room to study for the competition. They were so nervous you'd think I was taking the college entrance exam. "If you could just get 3rd place, our ancestors would be so proud." "Don't be nervous, son. Just stay calm." I grabbed a random book and pretended to review just to get them to stop talking. With my math ability at over 60 points, I could dominate even a city-level competition, let alone this county one. The next morning, I left home to the sound of my parents cheering loud enough for the entire street to hear. I walked toward the meeting point, yawning. Out of Jitsai's 10-person team, I was the only first-year student. Our team leader was Mr. Yang himself. I arrived at the County Education Center at 8:30 a.m. to find the place already packed. Schools from all over the county had their banners flying. First High, Second High, Southern Arts, Home 2, and of course, Jitsai. Students stood in neat formations, some excited, some nervous. My enhanced vision spotted Mr. Yang's shiny bald head instantly, and I found our team. I was the last one to arrive, and the 9 other Jitsai competitors were already sizing me up. Ding. Mind reading activated. Jealousy levels in surrounding area. 98%. They were all 2nd and 3rd year students, annoyed that a first-year freshman had a competition spot. I ignored them and closed my eyes to rest. But they started talking about me, loudly enough to make sure I heard. Who's that arrogant kid? A first year. Must have connections. He's just going to waste a spot that could have gone to one of us. I open my eyes. I hear talking behind someone's back makes your tongue rot. They dropped the pretense and confronted me directly. We're talking about you. We don't like backdoor people. I smiled. It's a bit early to say who's going to embarrass themselves today, don't you think? Then a serious-looking older student stepped forward, apparently Xiao Kai, Jitsai's math king, who topped the grade rankings every year. Two fangirls flanked him, glaring at me. They gushed about his achievements. Undefeated first place, represented the school last year, came within just 5 points of winning third place, the best result in Jitsai's history. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing at 5 points short of third place. Xiao Kai's face darkened. The fangirls looked ready to attack. He asked coldly, "Is something funny?" I composed myself. "I wish you the best of luck in capturing that third-place prize today, senior." Everyone heard the sarcasm. Before Xiao Kai could respond, a small voice piped up behind him. "Excuse me, please let me through." A polite little boy of about 6 was trying to get past the group. The two fangirls immediately forgot their anger and started pinching his cheeks. "So cute. Are you lost, little guy?" The boy squirmed uncomfortably, trapped between them. "Let him go." My voice came out cold and sharp. Both girls flinched like they'd been caught by the police. "What's your problem?" They protested, but they let go under my stare. The boy escaped to my side and looked up at me with relief. "Ahong, are those girls your classmates?" I glanced at them dismissively. "Two people I barely know. Just ignore them." They were fuming, but I'd already turned my attention to the boy. It was Fu Xin, the little math prodigy I'd beaten at Kai's villa. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He sighed, his small face looking weary beyond his years. "It's my grandpa. Ever since I lost to you, he's been entering me in every single math competition he can find." I felt a bit guilty. My victory over Fu Xin had turned his grandfather into a competition-obsessed drill sergeant, entering the poor kid in every math contest he could find. While we chatted, Xiao Kai marched over and told me to send my little family member away since outsiders weren't allowed. I told him Fu Xin wasn't my family. Fu Xin looked up innocently and said, "I'm not here to play. I'm here to compete." Everyone except me burst out laughing. "That's adorable," one guy joked. "If you're competing, then I'm here to win the national championship." Fu Xin shook his head seriously. "I already won the national championship when I was 4. Now I have a bigger goal." He glanced at me with admiration in his eyes. The more earnest he was, the harder they laughed. Xiao Kai called security to escort the lost child away. But when the guards arrived and saw Fu Xin, their faces lit up with relief. "Young master, we've been looking everywhere for you. Please don't run off. Your grandfather will fire us." The laughter froze on everyone's faces. "Young master?" Fu Xin apologized sweetly, waved goodbye to me, and left with the guards. One guard thanked the group for finding him and casually mentioned his name. A student suddenly jumped up. "Wait, Fu Xin? The prodigy who won a gold medal at an American math competition at age 5? They all went pale, realizing the kid they'd mocked was a legendary genius. The two girls who'd pinched his cheeks looked like their fingers were on fire. Then one girl remembered something else. "Didn't Fu Xin say he'd lost to Yihong?" Everyone turned to stare at me. If a famous prodigy had lost to me, what did that make me? They quickly convinced themselves they must have misheard. Xiao Kai declared I was just someone who happened to know a genius. Nothing special. Ignore him. When results come out, pretend we don't know him. The entry bell rang. We filed into the education center. At the entrance, everyone drew a random number from a box to determine their seat. This prevented cheating by scrambling everyone's positions. I reached in and pulled out. Building 6, room 6, seat 6. Ding. Lucky number drawn. Luck 1. Even the staff member by the box gave me a thumbs up. In the exam room, I didn't recognize anyone. As I sat down at seat 6, the guy behind me in seat 7 tapped my shoulder and pointed across the room. "See that guy at seat 17? A clean-cut student with glasses was obsessively wiping his desk with tissues. "That's Su Qingran," my neighbor whispered excitedly. "The math genius from First High. He's already been accepted early to the National University of Science and Technology's math program. And he's only in his 3rd year. Every math teacher in the county uses him as an example of perfection. He wasn't supposed to enter this competition, but he changed his mind yesterday for some reason. I looked at Su Qingran with new interest. This could actually be fun. Actually, Mr. Yang had mentioned Su Qingran in class before. He'd already been accepted early into the National University of Science and Technology, one of the top schools in the country. Being in the same room as a certified genius made everyone nervous. I also noticed Su Qingran kept glancing at me from the corner of his eye, which was strange. At 9 o'clock sharp, the competition began. The first round was a 30-minute function test. One of the two female exam supervisors started distributing papers. When she handed me mine, I glanced at the problems and smiled. My system had already solved everything in that instant. She froze, staring at my smile like she was hypnotized. Ding! Proficient flirting skill auto-triggered. The guy behind me had to yell, "My turn," to snap her out of it. She turned red and hurried away, flustered. I picked up my pen and started writing immediately. No pausing, no thinking. Just smooth, continuous writing. Ding! Writing speed 1. Students nearby turned to watch, mouths dropping open. They couldn't believe someone was already answering questions when they hadn't even finished reading the first problem. The supervisor had just finished handing out all the papers, maybe 3 minutes total, when I raised my hand. She walked over, annoyed. "Is there a problem with your paper?" "No. I'd like to turn it in." Her mouth formed a perfect "Oh." She took my paper with trembling hands and saw every question answered in neat handwriting. She'd just finished distributing papers. This had never happened before in the competition's history. She consulted her colleague. Then they called in the head examiner, a stern, heavy-set man who checked my paper thoroughly. Finding no issues, he had no choice but to let me leave. The entire room went silent as I walked out. Most students were still reading the first question. The guy behind me looked like he was about to have a mental breakdown. Su Qingran's face darkened. He still had one problem left. Since the second round didn't start until 10, I had almost an hour to kill. I wandered around the grounds and ended up at the field where all the team coaches were waiting. When they saw me walk out of the exam building, they shook their heads with knowing smiles. Another student who cracked under pressure. Can't blame him. The questions get harder every year. Mr. Yang spotted me and rushed over, horrified. "What happened? Why are you out so early?" I shrugged. "I finished, so I left." The other teachers burst out laughing, thinking I was putting on a brave face after giving up. One even teased Mr. Yang. "Your student is quite the character. Classic Jitsai quality." Mr. Yang's face went dark with disappointment. He'd pinned all his hopes on me, and here I was walking out less than 3 minutes into the exam. He turned away without another word, too upset to even look at me. Mr. Yang was so angry he wouldn't even talk to me. Fine by me. I found a tree by the field and closed my eyes to rest. Soon I heard commotion. Su Qingran had finished and walked out of the exam building. Teachers immediately swarmed around him, praising and fussing. The contrast with how they treated me was almost funny. But Su Qingran ignored them all. He walked straight toward my tree. "One tree can't hold 2 guests," I said without opening my eyes. He stopped 3 meters away. "Did you actually answer the question seriously, or were you just writing nonsense?" I didn't bother responding. After a while, all he heard was my snoring. He stormed off, furious. What I didn't see was him sneaking into a dark corner to meet a shifty-looking man with a hoarse face and narrow eyes. Su Qingran told the man, "Qin Long was right. Yihang's math ability is suspicious. When the time comes," the man assured him he'd handle it. So Qin Long was involved. He hadn't given up after all. Round 2 started at 10, geometry problems, 30 minutes. The same supervisor distributed papers. She was watching me anxiously, relieved when I didn't immediately raise my hand. That relief lasted about 10 seconds before my hand went up again. The geometry required more drawing, which slowed me down slightly, but I still finished before anyone else. Su Qingran had only solved 2 problems when I turned in my paper. He watched me leave with a strange smile, then deliberately answered his remaining questions wrong. Poor Mr. Yang, seeing me walk out early a second time, his disappointment had turned into genuine heartbreak. He regretted ever asking the principal for a university recommendation for me. Round 3 at 11 was the big one. A single ultra-difficult comprehensive problem that eliminated 99% of contestants every year. When I saw it, I froze, but not because it was hard. This was the exact problem I'd created for Fu Huayong and Fu Xin at the Kai Villa last week. How had my own problem ended up on the official exam? Confused but unbothered, I solved it and left first again. The other examinees were too numb to even react anymore. After all 3 rounds ended at 11:30, the judges began grading in a private room. The panel included that horse-faced man from the shadows. While the others were busy grading, he pulled out my paper and Su Qingran's, then swapped our names. Now my perfect answers carried Su Qingran's name, and his deliberately wrong answers carried mine. The scores were tallied, and the head examiner took the results to announce outside. But the moment he left, a tall figure in a green military coat strode into the room. The 4 remaining judges jumped to their feet in panic. "Chairman, what brings you here?" It was Fu Huaiyong, who, as it turned out, was the president of the county's math association. He'd founded it himself. After our math discussions at the villa had reignited his passion, he'd personally written this year's exam questions, including the final problem I'd invented. He casually asked who won the top prize. The horse-faced man replied smoothly, "Your grandson Fu Xine, of course." Su Qingran did well too, but couldn't compare. Fu Huaiyong's face turned thunderous. "Who told you to give Fu Xine special treatment? His real rank is his real rank." Fake praise only hurts him. The judges turned white and started bowing frantically. "Forgive us, Chairman. Now show me Su Qingran's paper," he barked. While I was resting under the tree, something was going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about yet. Fu Huaiyong was in the grading room, looking at what he thought was Su Qingran's paper. He kept praising it, but felt something oddly familiar about the answers. Then he saw my name on the participant list and demanded to see my paper immediately. The horse-faced judge froze, sweat forming on his forehead. When Fu Huaiyong compared the 2 papers side by side, he noticed the handwriting on the names didn't match the handwriting on the answers. Someone had swapped our names. My perfect answers now carried Su Qingran's name, and his deliberately botched answers carried mine. Fu Huaiyong slammed the table so hard the teacup shattered on the floor. Nobody dared move. He pointed at the 4 judges and roared, "Do you know who Yi Hong is? He's the greatest math talent I've ever encountered. Someone even I can only look up to. The final problem on this exam. He wrote it. And you're telling me he didn't even place?" The horse-faced man was shaking so badly his legs were cramping. Then Fu Huaiyong threw both papers in their faces and growled, "Who did this?" His battlefield aura hit them like a tidal wave. The horse-faced man collapsed to the ground and blurted out, "It wasn't me. I didn't swap their names." Dead silence. The other 3 judges stared at him in horror. Fu Huaiyong grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up. "I never said anything about names being swapped. How did you know?" He'd given himself away completely. Meanwhile, out on the field, I was dealing with my own frustration. I knew I'd answered everything correctly, yet I hadn't won a single award. Something was very wrong. The final problem was literally one I'd invented. There was no way I got it wrong. Shao Kai strutted over, waving his 3rd-place trophy in my face. "I told you to stay home. Can't even get a consolation prize." Pathetic. The other Jitsai students piled on, calling me a waste of a competition spot. Even Mr. Yang shook his head in disappointment, thinking my talent had been a fluke. Su Qingran accepted his 1st-place award with a calm smile, but I caught him shooting me a strange, knowing look from across the field. Just as the head examiner was about to declare the competition officially over, a thunderous voice boomed across the entire field. "Wait." Everyone turned. Fu Huaiyong was marching toward the stage in his military coat, radiating terrifying authority. Behind him trailed the 4 judges, and the horse-faced one looked like a dead man walking. Su Qingran's confident expression finally cracked. The horse-faced judge, his name was Xie Shu, blurted out the worst thing he possibly could. "It wasn't me. I didn't swap their names." But Fu Huaiyong had never mentioned anything about names being swapped. The man had just confessed without being accused. Fu Huaiyong grabbed him, then stormed out to the field carrying both papers. He marched onto the stage and silenced the entire crowd with one look. "I am Fu Huaiyong, chairman of the Math Association." Every student in the audience went rigid with awe. This man was a living legend who appeared in their textbooks. "There has been a serious error in the results," he announced grimly. "A corrupt individual within our organization tampered with the scores. All awards will be reevaluated." "I deeply apologize." The field erupted. Then he dropped the real bomb. "Su Qingran's results are hereby cancelled." He is permanently banned from all association competitions. The noise was deafening. Su Qingran, the genius everyone admired, stripped of everything? He screamed from the crowd. On what grounds? Fu Huayong threw both papers at his feet. See for yourself. Su Qingran picked them up with shaking hands and saw my name staring back at him. His face went gray. Fu Huayong then announced that Judge Xie Shu was fired immediately for conspiring with Su Qingran to swap exam papers, and that police would investigate further. Xie Shu fainted on the spot. Then Fu Huayong delivered the killing blow. He would contact First High's principal to reconsider Su Qingran's early admission to the National University of Science and Technology. That broke Su Qingran completely. That university spot was everything. His family had invested enormous resources to secure it. Losing it would make him a family disgrace and a county-wide laughingstock. He threw himself at Fu Huayong's legs, sobbing, "Please give me another chance." Fu Huayong kicked him away in disgust. Su Qingran collapsed on the ground, crying hysterically, and blurted out everything. Why did I take Qin Long's money to sabotage Yi Hong? Why did I have Xie Shu swap our papers? I'm such an idiot. Qin Long's name echoed across the field. People started asking who Yi Hong and Qin Long were. Some teachers recognized my name, the same ones who'd laughed at Mr. Yang earlier. Slowly, every pair of eyes on that field turned toward me. Mr. Yang's face was cycling through emotions at light speed. Joy, because now he understood I should have won first place. Fury, because Qin Long, his own student, had orchestrated this from the shadows. Qin Long, I'm going to destroy that boy when I get back, he growled. As for my Jitsai teammates, the ones who'd called me a waste of a spot and a nobody riding on connections, they couldn't even look at me. Their faces burned red with shame. The real waste of space had never been me. It had been their assumptions. I stood there calmly through all of it, watching the chaos unfold, feeling nothing but quiet satisfaction. I was furious. Now I understood why Su Qingran had suddenly entered the competition. Qin Long had paid him to sabotage me. That guy just wouldn't quit. I swore I'd make him regret it permanently when I got back to school. The awards ceremony was held again that afternoon. This time, I received the grand prize, the highest honor, the King of Mathematics title. Fu Huayong himself presented it to me on stage. He whispered with a grin, "Does this count as the favor I owe you?" I smiled back. "You did this on your own initiative." I never formally asked. "So, no, it doesn't count." He glared at me, pretending to be angry. "You little fox." With me taking the top spot, everyone else shifted down one position. Poor Xiao Kai got bumped right off the podium entirely. When I walked back carrying the enormous trophy, his two fangirls had already abandoned him and were crowding around me instead. He stood alone in the wind, forgotten. Mr. Young apologized, embarrassed. I told him it was fine. Just never make me do one of these boring competitions again. Everyone within earshot twitched at the word boring. When I got home with the trophy, my parents couldn't believe their eyes. "Is this really yours? You didn't borrow it to trick us?" I rolled my eyes and went upstairs, leaving them hugging the trophy and giggling like children. Then came a new dilemma for them. Should they push me toward academics or business? As my mom put it, happy problems. The next morning, a moving truck pulled up outside our shop. I'd suggested leaving our old, outdated equipment behind and buying new stuff for the new location. But my parents were too sentimental. They insisted on bringing every rusty pot and worn-out tool along. The neighbors gathered to see us off. Even though we'd had our conflicts, 10+ years of being neighbors meant something. Uncle Gua the beef vendor came to say goodbye. When I told him we were moving to East Street, he nearly choked. "East Street? You've really made it to the big leagues." My mom hugged her mahjong friends and cried. It took until almost noon before we finally pulled away. East Street was everything I'd heard. The busiest commercial district in the county, with a main road and several branching streets full of high-end shops. Our new location was at a major intersection right in the middle, with foot traffic flowing from every direction. The storefront was jaw-dropping. 2 tall frameless glass doors flanked by curved windows that stretched dozens of meters along the corner. You could see inside from any approach. The interior was massive. The first floor alone was 20 times bigger than our old place. And the kitchen, my dad actually cried when he saw it. Brand new modern equipment, electronic steamers, professional ovens, things he'd only ever seen on TV. I noticed Kai Jianan had quietly renovated the entire space into a restaurant layout, perfectly tailored to our needs. He'd never told me about it, probably because he knew I'd refuse. That explained why the preparation had taken so long. I shook my head with a helpless smile. That man was impossible to outmaneuver when it came to generosity. The new store wasn't just impressive on the first floor. The second floor had elegant private dining rooms and VIP booths. The whole place was as luxurious as that fancy French restaurant we'd visited. The third floor had 3 spacious apartment suites. We could live in one and save the others for future employees. Kai Jianan hadn't just given us a shop. He'd given us 3 apartments worth millions. We were happily exploring our new home when a shrill voice pierced the air from downstairs. "Is anyone alive in here?" A man in a cream-white suit stood at our door, pinching a handkerchief over his nose, looking at our old equipment with disgust. "Is this a junk recycling center?" He sprayed himself with perfume like he'd stepped in something foul. His name was Wu Tao, but you can call me Little Peach, and he was the manager of the Nike shoe store across the street. He'd come to offer us triple rent to hand over our space for his store's expansion. He clearly thought we were poor nobodies who'd jump at the money. What he didn't know was that our rent was 0. So 000 was still 0. Plus, we weren't about to upset Kai Jianan. I pointed at the door. "You have 3 seconds to get out." He shrieked something about us being ungrateful wretches. My dad grabbed a spatula and chased him out the door. He ran away screaming threats about making us pay. My parents immediately started worrying about making an enemy of a big brand store manager. I told them to relax. He's just a shoe store manager. We need to start thinking bigger. Once our restaurant is strong enough, nobody will dare disrespect us again. My words steadied them. Without realizing it, I'd become the real decision-maker in our family. Whenever I spoke with confidence, my parents felt like the sky could fall and everything would still be fine. That night, we settled into our new home. I finally had my own spacious room on the 3rd floor. No more listening to my parents' nighttime noises through thin walls. There was even space for my sister when she came home from boarding school. The store was massive, and the 3 of us couldn't possibly run it alone, especially since I still had school. I'd need to hire employees soon. Those extra apartment suites would make great staff housing. I took the next day off school. Mr. Young panicked when I called, thinking I was sick. Turns out the school had planned a ceremony to celebrate my math competition win, with the principal himself as presenter. I explained it was just our shop's grand opening, and Mr. Young offered to come as a ribbon-cutting guest. That gave me an idea about who else to invite. I called Coach Jiang, computer teacher Mr. Zhao, and even police captain Duan Feihu. I skipped Brother Biao since he and the police captain probably wouldn't mix well. I also invited Kai Jianan and Fu Huaiyong, though I wasn't sure if those 2 big shots would be free. The ceremony company arrived before 6 in the morning. I'd hired them to handle everything: decorations, planning, reception. Within an hour, the place was transformed with lanterns, flowers, and festive banners. At 8 o'clock, drums boomed and fireworks lit up East Street. Our massive LED sign blazed the word, "Yes Food," above the entrance. Crowds gathered from every direction, curious about this new restaurant that had appeared at the busiest intersection in town. 2 rows of elegant hostesses stood at attention. My parents and I waited alongside our 3 guests, Mr. Yang, Coach Jiang, and Mr. Zhao. None of the bigger names had shown up yet. The professional MC launched into her opening speech. The crowd clapped enthusiastically. Everyone loves a grand opening, especially when there might be deals. Just as the ribbon cutting was about to begin, a piercing laugh cut through the air. "Oh ho ho, I thought there'd be important people here. But the ribbon-cutting guests are just a few poor school teachers." Wu Tao sashayed out from the crowd, dripping contempt. My 3 teacher guests turned red with anger, but held back when they saw his expensive outfit. I stepped right up to him. "Wu Tao, go to the dog slaughterhouse on the east outskirts. That's where you belong." He flinched at my stare but recovered, turning to the crowd with his shrill voice. "Everyone listen up. I'm the manager of Nike shoes. Anyone who steps foot in this restaurant today will be permanently blacklisted from our store. Think carefully." That was like dropping a bomb. The crowd started murmuring, and it was obvious most people would rather keep their access to a famous shoe brand than try some unknown restaurant. But Wu Tao wasn't done. He clapped his hands, and one by one, managers from other major brand stores stepped out of the crowd. Ugly Electronics will also blacklist anyone who enters. Dammy Phones, same policy. Anima Fashion agrees. One after another, the biggest stores on East Street declared a collective boycott against us. The crowd's murmuring turned into open discussion. Nobody wanted to lose access to shoes, phones, electronics, and clothing just for one meal. My parents went white. Mom nearly fainted. My 3 teacher guests looked like they wanted to disappear. They clearly regretted coming and were afraid of being associated with us. The hostess's smiles froze. The MC was on the phone with her boss, asking if they should cancel. Everyone was panicking except me. Ding. Calm under pressure. Mental fortitude won. In my eyes, Wu Tao was nothing but a clown. I stood there with the same relaxed smile, watching the chaos unfold. He saw my expression and it clearly infuriated him. He couldn't understand why I wasn't breaking down. The ceremony company panicked and started packing up. The hostesses left. The MC was on the phone begging her boss for instructions. In minutes, our grand opening went from celebration to ghost town. Wu Tao was cackling with delight, convinced he'd destroyed us before we even started. Every major store manager on East Street had joined his boycott, all bought with his money. In their eyes, we were a nobody shop they could crush without consequences. I just shook my head and smiled. Wu Tao, ever heard the saying? The schemer who schemes too cleverly ends up destroying himself? He looked nervous. What do you mean? I pointed down the street. Look, a black sedan was pulling up. Out stepped Captain Duan Feihu, Anming County's most famous police officer, the man everyone considered their guardian. He walked straight to me and apologized for being late. He'd come to cut the ribbon. The crowd's attitude shifted instantly. Wu Tao tried to act tough. Just one cop. So what? But Duan casually mentioned that police intelligence had flagged quality issues with Nike's latest shipment, and Wu Tao would need to come in for questioning. His legs buckled. Then came the real show. Luxury cars started flooding the intersection. BMW, Mercedes, Cadillac, Ferrari. One after another, incredibly powerful people stepped out, led by Kai Jianan himself. Sorry I'm late, Xiaoyi, he smiled. Took a bit of time rounding up some friends to support you. The crowd went insane. People recognized the chairman of Anima Fashion, a foreign businessman with global reach. The glamorous female CEO of Ugly Electronics. The head of Dammy Phones. Any one of these people could shake national markets. Together, they were a force that could move the world economy. I had to reassess just how powerful Kai Jianan really was. What he showed in Anming County was clearly just the tip of the iceberg. When Kai Jianan heard what Wu Tao and the store managers had done, his face turned terrifyingly cold. He walked back to the group of CEOs and had a quiet word with several of them, specifically the bosses of the same brands whose store managers had just threatened us. Those CEOs came to me personally. Mr. Yi, we're truly sorry. Our employees acted out of line. Then they turned to their own managers and barked, "Get over here and apologize." Now, the same people who'd been smugly declaring boycotts minutes ago came crawling over, literally stumbling over each other to bow and beg forgiveness. "Mr. Yi, please forgive us. We were tricked by Wu Tao. We'll cut all ties with him immediately." The crowd stood in stunned silence watching these powerful store managers grovel before a teenager. Then their eyes moved to me, surrounded by billionaires and CEOs who all treated me with genuine respect. Ding. Center of attention. Charisma 1. Aura 1. In that moment, I stood taller than all of them. I was the brightest star on East Street. Wu Tao's mouth had been hanging open since Kai Jianan arrived. When his allies all betrayed him, his face went through every shade of red and white. He started trembling. Kai Jianan walked up to him, and the murderous look in his eyes made Wu Tao's voice die in his throat. Kai Jianan's voice rang out cold and clear. From today, the Kai Group is cutting all business ties with Nike shoes. Wu Tao looked like he'd been dropped into an ice bath. He'd never imagined our little restaurant had this kind of backing. Nike was a global brand, but in Anming County, crossing the Kai Group meant death. If headquarters found out it was all his fault, his career was over. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. But it got worse for him. An ancient red Hongqi sedan, the kind only the most powerful people in the country drove 30 years ago, rolled up to our door. Kai Jianan himself rushed forward to help the passenger out. It was Fu Huaiyong. The crowd went absolutely wild. Fu Huayong wasn't just some math association president. That was his hobby. His real identity was a legendary war hero whose name appeared in news broadcasts, magazines, and school textbooks. Even the nation's highest leaders reportedly consulted him on policy. He was untouchable. When he shook my hand warmly in front of everyone, the crowd's minds collectively exploded. The biggest five-star hotel in the county had once begged Fu Huayong to attend their opening, and he'd refused. Yet here he was, at our little restaurant. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Who said the guest list was pathetic?" "This is a universe-level lineup," Fu Huayong overheard and joked. "Do I really look that shabby?" Wu Tao heard this and fainted on the spot. A cleaning lady eventually wheeled him away on her trash cart to the Nike store across the street. The ceremony company people who'd been fleeing earlier stood frozen mid-retreat, unsure what to do. Their pretty MC called her boss again to report the situation. After a long silence, all she heard was a single explosive curse word. When they sheepishly tried to come back, I blocked their path. "Our contract is canceled." The MC tried everything, begging, bowing, even pulling her dress down to show some shoulder. I didn't blink. Ding. Resisting temptation. Willpower won. I told her to tell her boss that a company that abandons clients at the first sign of trouble would never work with us again. Then I turned to the assembled business leaders. "I'm sure none of you would want to work with such an unreliable company either, right?" One by one, every CEO spoke up. Dammy phones, cutting ties, ugly electronics, refusing future cooperation. Even the Italian chairman of Anima Fashion shook his head. "In my country, companies like yours would be boycotted by every businessman." The MC collapsed to the ground, finally understanding what it felt like to be collectively blacklisted. Except this boycott came from the most powerful people in the business world. Her company was finished, not just in Aming County, but everywhere. "Mr. Yi, please, get out," I said. "Get out," the crowd echoed, hundreds of voices strong. The ceremony staff slunk away with their tails between their legs. Kai Jianan offered to call the best ceremony company in the county to replace them. I shook my head and smiled. "Why rely on others when I can rely on myself?" He paused, then looked at me with a new spark of respect in his eyes.